Wait, remember Beyblade? I sure do. In fact, I've been thinking a lot about Beyblade recently thanks to the series getting a new iteration called Beyblade X. Along with this, we have seen the Beyblade brand really go in on making sure that Beyblade X can be a successful new entry into this IP that has been running since the end of the 90s. But what captured my attention first was this. The manga. From giving this new series in the Beyblade franchise a chance, it sparked my interest in going back to relive my own experiences with Beyblade growing up and seeing how the series progressed throughout the different iterations of it. So if you'd like to see more of Beyblade covered outside of just this video, let me know in the comments and by leaving a like on the video. So then, what are we looking at today? Well, aside from a brief bit of history of how Beyblade came to be in the first place, I want to talk about the original anime series. So that's the original season of the show, the follow-up season V-Force, and the final third season, G-Revolution. So today, let's take a look back at the rise of Beyblade, see what the anime was all about, and why it works so well beyond just the anime, thus creating a legacy that still technically continues on in new and old ways to this day. 3, 2, 1, let her rip. Beyblade, one of the hottest crazes that dominated the turn of the century, building a vast fan base that wanted nothing more than to get their hands on their own Beyblade tops to go up against their friends for fun, or in some cases, take it further as to go and compete in official tournaments to see if you really are the main protagonist of this hobby. You knew things were about to go down when a crowd would gather around two people about to duke it out, as they would get hyped up by their peers cheering, as they would launch their Beyblades into battle with only one of them coming out victorious. These sometimes didn't just happen at a friend's house. These matches would even happen in school. It was like an underground Beyblading circuit. These used to happen most often during lunch or at recess, but the problem was Beyblades were banned in my school, and if we were about to get caught, everyone would start scrambling and hiding the goods. I remember this one time that a match had to like abruptly end because we were about to get caught by a teacher, and like the top like nearly undefeated Beyblader of the school ended up getting his Beyblade confiscated. Everyone was shocked at this, but like once the teacher left, that kid turned back to us, smiled, and pulled out his really good Beyblade from his pocket, basically saying he swapped a crappy one that he didn't use and gave that to the teacher and kept his one that he was winning with. And like, everyone thought he was the coolest kid ever from this point. And you know who that kid grew up to be? No, not me. I didn't have it like that. Shout out JC, wherever you're at now, I hope you're still blading. Beyblade in general has expanded over the last couple decades and some change since it originally came out, with every iteration having a new, upgraded way to make the physical version more dynamic and feel closer to the epicness that the anime would portray it as. Introducing a metal series for heavier parts with more impact, a burst series to really make it feel like damage is being done in Beyblade battle, and a whole bunch more to keep this franchise in every aspect relevant. From the manga to the video games to the physical toys to the anime itself, Beyblade continues to stick around, try new things, and make sure that this eye-capturing spinning top series, no pun intended, stays on top and doesn't fall over. Okay, a bit of that was intentional, but to start taking a fun look at Beyblade, we need to understand the history of Beyblade. So let's see how this multimedia franchise that fills many, myself included, with so much nostalgia came to be the series we know it as today. Spinning tops, something that kids throughout history all around the world have found some sort of obsession in entertainment with, whether it be from ancient Egypt, or throughout Chinese and Japanese culture, or being within the writings of Homer's The Iliad, to an even more modern day where a spinning top could be used as a way to know if you're currently within a dream or not. Oh, sorry, that's just what the character of Cobb does in the movie Inception. Either way, one thing is for certain that we can easily see from all of this, and that is throughout history, humans just love the concept of making a little object spin around, like just fully being captivated and mesmerized by it. When will it stop? Who knows? But you better believe I'm not taking my eye off of it until it does. But of course, things didn't just stop at watching a singular top being spun. What if there were two spinning tops and they were made to do battle with one another, leaving one top still spinning as the victor, and yeah, You can see where this is going. So in order to fast forward to the modern day to where the concept of the spinning top has evolved, with me referring to Beyblade, we need to trace the specific origins that led us there, bringing us to Japan specifically to look at Beoma, which can date its own origins and concept back all the way to Japan's Edo period somewhere within the 17th century. Over time, the general way this sort of game evolved ended up in the players using these spinning tops made of metal instead of seashells filled with sand, with different ones having different markings on them, having slight variations to their sizes, all for them to have different strategies when being used. But overall, these were all really small, only being about a few centimeters in width. After setting up some sort of field of play, which usually was made of cloths or fabrics, those who were playing would first have to tightly wrap up rope around the grooves of the top, as they would then throw out or launch their tops in a way where it causes them to start spinning around properly, allowing the tops that were going against one another to spin around each other, clash into one another, and ultimately leave the last top standing, or which top stops spinning last, as the winner. From there, I think you can easily see how this concept that became really prevalent in the early 1900s led to the concept of Beyblade by the end of the 1900s. I mean, you don't get the Bay in Beyblade without Beoma. Before we do get to Beyblade being a thing, throughout the 1900s we would see other spinning top related games being made and marketed, like Battling Tops, an American-made type of board game that was played in a circular arena where different spinning tops were launched into it with strings from a launcher base. These type of concepts in different places around the world would continue to evolve this similar concept, with us now entering the mid-1990s where Bandai began producing several series of metal spinning top toys called Spin Fighters, as they would follow the same base concept of all of the other spinning top toys, just with them now having power launchers, making the setup to have them used in battle a lot more easy, as it saved you a bunch of time. While Spin Fighters would build its own unique legacy with how it would become a thing for a few years, and even more recently tried to come back in new ways, like China having their own 4 seasons of an animated series simply called Spin Fighters, they originally wouldn't stick around to make it out of the 90s. With only a couple years later, in July of 1999, Beyblade became the newest version of the concept. Only this time, this version of it came out swinging with a plan to follow the wave of new properties taking over different aspects of entertainment mediums. Not only were these toys, again no pun intended, launching and capturing the attention of kids, there was also a comic series titled Explosive Shoot Beyblade that would begin to run in Shogakukan's Korokoro comic manga magazine, starting in August of 1999. Coming from the Japanese toy company Takara, several years before merging with another Japanese toy company, Tomei, Beyblade was able to become quite the hit at the time in Japan. For the toys themselves, what you would get in a box would essentially be a model kit of you popping out the individual pieces that you would need to put together in order for it to become the full Beyblade you'd see on the cover of the packaging. On July 17th, 1999, Takara released the first 3 Beyblades: Spin Dragoon, also known as Ultimate Dragoon, Saizo, also known as Ultimate Saizo, and Frostic Dranzer, also known as Ultimate Frostic Dranzer. In general, you'd be able to put the whole Beyblade together, giving you that bond with the toy because you technically built it, even when it's just the original line and it's only like a few parts to put together: the attack ring, the weight disc, and the blade base, plus the bit beast chip that would kind of just sit on the top, but you know, semantics. As Beyblade would go on and have other iterations, the spinning tops themselves would evolve to be a bit more intricate. But as far as the original Beyblades go, this was the toy that you'd get out of the box when the series launched. Now, funny enough, Takara kind of had their hand in knowing how to bring these toys to life, and beyond that, be a part of a growing property thanks to their hand in creating the Beat-em-on toys, having its origins as a Bomberman-related tie-in before finding its own footing as its own thing. Why is it important to mention this? Well, outside of the tie-in factor to it being part of another property before it would be built into more of its own thing, this was kind of like Beyblade, where we see a similar classic game, with the example here being marbles, get taken and transformed a bit to have these other newer elements that at its core is still what it was built on, but now just has cool new things that can bring in an audience of kids to enjoy, that make it flashy with cool collectible characters. But beyond just that connection, one of the toy ideas ended up becoming this spinning top battle between 2 characters played within an arena, which to me starts the origins of how Takara began to develop Beyblade. This product was the Sugegome line of beat-em-on spin-off toys, which came out in the middle of the 1990s. To me, this is the blatant missing piece of Takara getting into spinning top toys, and why they were more prepared with what to make when it came to Beyblade. Beyblade. It would all then be thanks to Osamu Mashimo, who came up with the idea that would look at both Sugegoma as well as another spinning tops related toy that Takara made but failed called Battle Tops, as he would then want to give this type of toy in the market another chance, but one with a new vision, that being customization. What if you could take the base concept of spinning tops going against one another, but they were built in layers that can seemingly be interchangeable, and from there, the ball really got rolling. So when understanding that, let's move back to understanding the release of Beyblade in Japan and in general. There was also a third part to this initial launch of Beyblade that also helped spread the series' popularity in 1999, and that was the release of the first Beyblade video game on the Game Boy Color on July 23rd, 1999. Next Generation Begoma Battle, Beyblade. All of this would do well to begin the spreading enjoyment of Beyblade, as over the years, more toys, more video games, and more of the manga would continue, with the final fourth piece to this early success officially coming out in 2001, as that would be the anime adaptation of the series, focusing on the main character we would see on the cover of the games and be the focus of the manga, Takao, which would be created by Nippon Animation and Madhouse. This was the catalyst that really took Beyblade from something that could have been a here today and gone tomorrow series into a long-lasting franchise. From there, the boom in Japan for Beyblade became wild. It was hard to even get your hands on the toys themselves thanks to its popularity, and the manufacturing of them not being able to keep up with the demand. It was so big that the original form of this all, Begoma, was making a comeback, because if you couldn't get your hands on Beyblades, it was easier to source out the, at the time, only maker of Begoma. I know I said that the fourth piece was the final piece, but there is a fifth, at least in my opinion, that deserves some credit here too, because it was something that also followed the trends of stuff like Pokemon, outside of just having this multimedia approach at its launch, and that's the collectability factor. And no, I don't mean just collecting all the Beyblades for the heck of it. I mean they had monsters directly linked to them through what's referred to as a bit beast. So the actual toys had an extra reason to collect them, but thanks to other avenues like the video games or of course the anime, these extra collectible beast type factors jumped into the craze that many other properties at the time were also trying to capture. I just really think that Beyblade over the first couple years of its existence did everything right to become a dominant presence in the entertainment space for kids. Whether it was the toys, the anime, or even the video games, there was this push from Beyblade to be one of the upcoming successful brands that could really transition from a moment in time property to a worldwide phenomenon with some real longevity. Now, two things would happen from here. One, the success of Beyblade didn't mean that Takara was going to prosper as a company alone, with them going on to have other companies buying into owning a portion of them, like Konami purchasing a large percentage of Takara, leading to Takara being able to purchase Atlas in 2003. But after some more corporate fun that you'd totally care about, eventually in 2005, Takara would merge with Tomy. The second thing that would happen would be taking Beyblade and bringing it to international markets. From my experience with Beyblade, it would be none other than Hasbro that would be the ones bringing over Beyblade to the United States. But what's going to push the toys? How does the hype around Beyblade get started up within North America in general? Well, the anime, of course, thanks to none other than Nelvana for getting the license to create the English dubbed adaptation of it. 2002 would see the full rise of Beyblade fever in North America. Now, aside from my parents having me sell stuff that I wasn't playing with as much anymore as a kid at garage sales, in order for me to afford other toys or whatever stuff I wanted several years after Beyblade started coming out in the States, I did genuinely enjoy Beyblade despite what happened to my personal ones. I had about 2 or 3 different Beyblades, and even this cheap plastic purple arena to have them battle in, but as an only child, I didn't have anyone to play against. My parents weren't into it and didn't engage in specifically this interest with me, and all of my friends weren't really into Beyblade, usually opting to play some form of Pokemon or some Yu-Gi-Oh against one another, so they just weren't as played with as I may have wanted them to be. And look, I don't blame my parents. They supported so many other interests that I had, so I don't fault them for thinking that I wasn't into Beyblades, and heck, I was a kid. I was just understanding that things had value and picking and choosing where what little money I could earn at the time could go, with that mostly defaulting to Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh and even Digimon. Look, come at me all you want, I'm just being honest and expressing my truth. I still was there in the craze, watching it being played at school. I still had mine during the time it was still being brought to school. I lived in that world, you know, just not like at home or in my like direct neighborhood. No one was really playing it, but at school it was hype. There was like a solid 6 months where it was like really big at school. But you don't see me judging you for what you liked growing up, do you? Exactly. Unless you had one of those like weird toys that had this like figure suspended in water that you could like press and make it do stuff. Hey, it's okay. I had one of those too. Do you want to see what it looks like today? I still have it. Okay, you know what? This isn't even funny anymore. What? I'm gonna be really sick. What is... This might just be a biohazard and I need to go wash my hands.
Assembly required.
Right, so Beyblade started to become a worldwide hit. And while I maybe didn't get to enjoy my toys as much as I would have wanted to growing up, the anime was definitely something that I paid attention to. So let's talk about that, shall we? Right when you get into the first episode, you get hit with some pretty interesting lore to kind of understand the world you're about to enter. As we hear the narrator explain that Beyblading is eons old, coming from a time where powerful beasts roamed the earth. But as the old ways faded, the reawakened essences of the beasts heralded the dawning of a new age of champions, ending things off by saying the beasts shall rise again. Whatever all that means, am I right? Really, it just sounds like a big word salad full of buzzwords that sound cool without giving us deeper meaning to anything that was mentioned. There were beasts? Okay. Well, they didn't really show any. They just have a bunch of Beyblade tops spinning around here in this intro. Were the beasts playing with the Beyblades, or are they the Beyblades, or was it people playing with the beasts alongside them as they played with the Beyblades? Who knows? We just get brought into this world by being told that, hey, expect some crazier stuff to happen outside of just some spinning tops. There's beasts, and don't go anywhere. Maybe this was in the efforts to make sure kids tuning in for the first time to give the series a shot didn't just leave to go watch another show with creatures in it. Anyway, we are brought into the modern time of the show taking place, where we meet our main protagonist, Tyson Granger, getting a moment to see what he's all about while doing stuff like training with his grandfather, who speaks with all the slang of the turn of the century and what came before it, making it feel like some characters are going to suffer from the translation and dubbing to sound hip and relevant. And there's only two ways this goes. Either you find some charm in it and its cheesiness, or you find it cringier than when I make stupid jokes in my videos. We get some more lore dumped onto us about this family sword here that has the powers of the Great Dragoon infused with it, and it will only grant these powers to someone in the family who is well accomplished in martial arts. Hey, does Beyblading count as a martial art? Because I think you can tell where this is all going. From this, Tyson gears up and heads out of the house, giving us a chance to see what Beyblading is all about and how great of a Beyblader he is, as well as explaining the simple rules of a traditional Beyblade match. Whoever knocks the other person's Beyblade out of the arena first wins, to which Tyson wins immediately, but in doing so, we see why he's the main protagonist, because he takes the time to give hope to the person that he beat, telling them to not give up on playing even if they always lose, and even going as far as to tell them that he thinks his Beyblade is cool too, and I think that's really nice. As Tyson talks about his passion for Beyblade, showing off his own, which is clearly blank on top, that's important, don't forget that, he mentioned he eats, breathes, and dreams about every aspect of what it means to be a Beyblader. Getting to be as good as he is takes practice, it takes patience, and there are strategies that go into all of it, you know, outside of any random luck factor that happens in a game about spinning tops. It's funny how many little parallels to Ash Ketchum Tyson has. He's blindly optimistic to a somewhat detrimental degree, sometimes he does end up running late to things, and yeah, he also wears gloves, he has a jacket, and rocks a hat, one that he shows off turning backwards because that was the cool thing to do back then. Don't make me whip out embarrassing photos from my youth. We all did this. Don't lie. This was a we thing and not a me thing, and if you say otherwise, you're a coward. If Tyson gets a cool mini montage of getting his gloves on, spinning around his hat, and jumping into his jacket, then dang it, so do I. Look, I'm just as surprised as you are that I'm not single. As Tyson goes off to get to the Bey battle he's running late for against another great Beyblader named Andrew, we get to meet another character named Carlos, who shows up to the location of the battle to defeat Andrew before Tyson gets there and ends up taking his Beyblade as a bit of a prize, revealing to us that he is from a group called the Blade Sharks, and we see that this guy has been beating and taking so many Beyblades from the people he's defeated. But with Tyson getting there and seeing what this guy is all about, he goes into how important the individual Beyblades are to the people they individually belong to. Win or lose, there is a bond between the person and the Beyblade. They end up agreeing to go head-to-head with one another the following day, but Tyson makes it clear that he is playing for the release of all of the Beyblades that Carlos has taken. So far, it's a nice and easy enough setup for us to get behind Tyson as a main character and see what Beyblading means to everyone in the world of the show. Also, the show does have one of those English dubs that feels like they had to fit in different lines of dialogue however they could to make it work with the animation, but also using this time to possibly give us some of the worst written, or best, depending on how you view it, bits of dialogue. You know, crack jokes at Yu-Gi-Oh! All you want for the English dub over-explaining everything in a very repetitive manner, but Beyblade, well, you know, how about I just reenact the dialogue between Tyson and this character who we meet who goes by the Chief. Hey! Take a breath and then tell me who you are. Oh yeah, around here they call me the Chief. They call me the Chief because I'm an expert at Beyblading. So whether you enjoy the unintentional humor of it all or just see it as bad, it definitely very much fits within the era that it came out. Now, I know we are talking a lot just about the first episode so far, but this episode really sets up so much to understand for the rest of the series. So now with this big Beyblade showdown coming up, Tyson is working hard to train for it. First by working with the Chief to see the information on his laptop about how Carlos has been having the advantage in the battles, seeing that he is using a heavier Beyblade, claiming that it keeps the spinning top more stable and lasts longer in the battle to end up in his victory against everyone he's taken Beyblades from so far. Everyone else is pretty much out of caring at this point and just wants to give up, but Tyson tries to give a motivational speech about not giving up as he then runs off saying that they are going to build the best Beyblade the world has ever seen, with everyone still lacking that faith that anything is really going to come from this. Now, later that night is when things really change, and this whole Beyblading world expands. When in his room, he ends up seeing something going on in the night sky, only for the spirit of the Dragoon to appear and end up seemingly going directly at him, as it potentially knocked him out for a bit, because he then wakes back up to notice his Beyblade being a bit different, but his reaction, well, he just says, "The Dragoon," replaying the same clips that we literally just saw seconds ago, and claiming that it was too cool in a very excited manner, as he just grabs it and then runs out of the room. You know, look, if something like this were to have happened, that would not be the reaction that I'd have first, but hey, to each their own, I guess. He ends up spending the rest of the night outside in his yard trying to practice with the Beyblade, almost as if none of what we just saw happened, and only hoping to get his Beyblade up to speed in order for it to have a chance against Carlos. When it's the next day now and everyone's waiting for this big Beyblade match, Tyson ends up running late to it, but does show off his new launcher, or winder, that he ended up extending to help it get to higher speeds, but that's not his secret strategy here to do so. Carlos tells him that that trick's not going to work, I've seen it before, but Tyson then shows off his running jump launch move to add this layer of momentum to have the Beyblade spin speed go 4 times faster, naturally making everyone go, oh my god, there's no way, that's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT! Also, I just want to point out a weird moment that happens between the Chief and his laptop, as after analyzing this move Tyson's doing, the voice of the computer says to the Chief that on a personal note, when will the Chief and her get some alone time? If only this show knew how ahead of the times they were. The match doesn't seem like anything too epic, but I fault that to just being the first episode, and we're only seeing the limited nature of these Beyblade battles. In the end, Tyson is the one who comes out on top, pun kind of intended, but Carlos wasn't willing to give up the Beyblades just for losing, even if they agreed on that. But he is stopped scared in his tracks as in front of him is this mysterious caped figure that kinda looks like they're straight out of a JRPG, maybe the world of .hack, and heck, even I can feel the menacing presence from him. And I'm not even involved in any of this, and you can't prove that I was. Speaking of proving something, this person tells Carlos that he has proven himself unworthy, having a blatant disregard for the Beyblades spilled on the ground as he steps on them while walking up to Carlos, only to smack him across the face, forcing him to fall onto the ground as this character starts walking away. Of course, Tyson speaks up and wants some answers here, so this character turns around, introduces himself as Kai, and claims to be the leader of the Blade Sharks. Andrew and the Chief are like, no, Tyson, don't challenge this guy. The Blade Sharks? Huh, they're the toughest Bay gang around. They've never been beaten before, and all I can picture is some sort of West Side Story type of battle between Bay gangs, and I'd pay top dollar to see that in theaters. Kai accepts Tyson's call out to battle, showing off off his Beyblade that has an image of a beast on top of it, you know, a bit beast, calling this Beyblade his Dronzer blade, foreshadowing something powerful that Tyson most likely isn't ready for. But whatever it is, it's coming his way, as the two of them let it rip as the first episode comes to a close with an epic early 2000s sounding soundtrack kicking in to get you hyped for the next episode, and where the series is going from there. Episode 1 establishes a lot in a short amount of time, giving us this lore about ancient Beyblade spirit monsters, a main protagonist with all the standard features you'd expect to come included, and a chance to see that he may just have what it takes to be the very best there ever was, you know, when it comes to spinning top games. Yeah, the dialogue is cheesy, the voice performances are pretty ridiculous, but you can't deny the charm and spirit that were on display. So now that we've established that, let's continue on to see what the rest of the anime itself truly had to offer going forward.
Beyblade, let it rip!
Tyson learns right away who he's dealing with here, and much like how he easily beat others in the first episode, he easily loses to Kai, but in a much more devastating way as Kai's Beyblade ends up destroying his, only fueling Tyson to want to be better, wanting to train more, as he is back in the dojo, releasing out his anger through his general martial arts training, as the spirit of the Dragoon keeps somewhat speaking to him, but it's unclear what's really happening as of now. When Andrew and the Chief, whose name is actually Kenny, and I will just start calling him that from now on, come over to visit Tyson, they end up giving us some more lore about there potentially being these Beyblades out there that have the power of beasts inside of them. But also they know bit beasts are a thing and can be sentient anyway because Kenny introduces Tyson officially to the voice in his computer, the one I mentioned from the first episode, as she is a bit beast named Dizzy that somehow became one with his computer during a power surge. Not long after, they all spend time working on building a new Beyblade for Tyson and practicing with it. Kenny ends up then getting kidnapped over valuable data that's on his laptop, causing Tyson to essentially pray to the Dragoon sword, or I guess the spirit of the Dragoon inside the sword, asking for help and going to save his friend. The spirit of the Dragoon ends up revealing himself once again to Tyson, and he now knows it wasn't a dream. And after it comes towards him this time, it ends up fusing with his newly built Beyblade, resulting in the Bit Beast image of this character forming on the blank spot on top of the Beyblade itself. So now that he has a nice matching color-coded Beyblade with a Bit Beast inside of it, he heads to where Kenny was taken, having to face Kai again in a rematch, putting up a stronger fight that gives him hope and gives all the others shock. But as things get more intense and both blades are crashing into one another, they both end up summoning the spirit forms of the Bit Beast over top of them. Everyone is mind blown, never seeing anything like it before as the match turns to a draw, with both blades being sent flying out of the arena. Kai explains that their beasts are actually inside of their Beyblades, and this is a rare thing with the majority of the Beyblades out there just being spinning tops with customizable parts. Both Tyson's and Kai's are special, and with that, Kai leaves for now with an ominous warning about things not being over, and even larger things are about to begin. Tyson's just happy that he has this powerful Beyblade with an actual spirit within it, and yeah, you know, that Kenny is saved, I guess. But who cares, right? He has a cool new powerful Beyblade, man. So now that this is fully set up with a lot left to learn and understand, we continue on setting more things up right at the start of the series, like them now meeting Max, a character who had just moved to this town recently and whose dad runs a hobby shop in the town. And hey, look at him run down that hill. Man, how does this from 2001 somehow look better than One Punch Man Season 3 from 2025? Anyway, at Max's dad's shop, there is a whole arena and training space for Beyblades right there, and then they end up trying to do this whole thing with Kenny getting suspicious of Max just coming out of nowhere, being a great Beyblader, and wanting to train with Tyson. And Tyson just thinks that Kenny's being jealous, you know how it goes. But these issues are squashed quickly, and Max comes off so wholesome and being excited that he met both of them and is friends with them, and it's like just genuinely sweet. But it's now where the series turns partly into a sports anime, it feels like, because now we are getting into official Beyblade tournaments as we transition into getting this BBA logo watermark on the bottom left of the screen, as if you are viewing this as a broadcast on TV. And I think that this little detail is really cool. It makes everything feel more connected in the world of the show. What is the BBA? It's the Beyblade Battle Association, and it just makes it all sound so legit. I love it. To go above and beyond with this concept, aside from the host of the events, DJ Jazzman, we end up getting these commentators, AJ Topper and Brad Best, who offer the playful commentary over what is being seen in the tournaments. These two characters are only in the English dubbed version of the series and are just voices only. I think this was a fun addition to really play into what this would look look like and feel like if it were a real sporting event that was professionally being broadcast. Now, for the start of this tournament, we need to have a qualifier round where we see who will make it into the actual tournament, as Tyson, Max, Kenny, and of course Kai are all entered in. As far as these matches go, Max and Tyson end up winning theirs, as Kenny ends up losing to Kai in the same aggressive Beyblade destroying way that Tyson lost earlier. We also then get introduced to the character of Raycon, who was invited to the tournament for a special reason, which we'll find out soon enough, and it would be really funny if this video was sponsored by a certain company that sounds exactly the same as Raycon's name. That's right, it's GamerSupps, that's what I was alluding to. If you use my code FRINGE at checkout, you're getting 10% off anytime you order. Not once, not twice, 3 times, 4 times, a million times. Anytime you ever place an order, use code FRINGE and you're gonna get 10% off. But if you've never had GamerSupps before, you can head over to GamerSupps. I have a link down below. You can go ahead and try out their free samples, absolutely free, no credit card needed. Just put my code in, FRINGE, and they'll be sent to you directly and you could give it a shot. I talk about GamerSupps all the time, and it's because I actually genuinely drink it. And anyone who uses my code FRINGE actually helps support the channel directly, so thank you to everyone who does use my code. I truly do appreciate all the support on the videos. So if you have tried GamerSupps, let me know your favorite flavors down below, but let's get back to blading. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye-bye, see you later. Back to the tournament now, Max is having to go up against Kai, which is where he is given this special necklace from his dad that belonged to Max's grandma. And would you believe it, when the match is getting intense and Max's Beyblade explodes out of the arena and right towards him, it shatters the necklace, and inside was a bit beast named Drasil. That's convenient, but even in trying to still defeat Kai, Max ends up losing. Tyson ends up going against Ray now, whose bit beast ends up breaking Tyson's blade in that initial round. But in needing to fix it or forfeit, Kenny ends up helping Tyson repair his Beyblade, even adding in a new defense ring that can make the spins so much more powerful that full-on vortexes can form. Mine never did that. Tyson ends up winning the next round, but before the final battle between the two to see who would advance forward starts, Ray forfeits, basically saying, "Hey boss man, you're too powerful for me. Take that energy into the finals," as he then offers a friendly bit of support and a smile before leaving. Also, Ray has the best character design so far, just saying. Anyway, the big final match happens between Tyson and Kai, where they each go one round with a victory apiece before the last round, where Tyson ends up giving it all he's got, using the power of the beast inside of the Beyblade to end up the victor at the end of this cage match. But the biggest shocker at the end becomes this announcement that puts Tyson, Kai, Ray, and Max together on a team called the Blade Breakers to represent Japan in the Worldwide Championships. From there, we enter into this new arc where there is clearly some dysfunction in this team dynamic, mainly from Kai, as he doesn't care about the others and assumes the same back onto him. He's only there to be a team leader and bring in some victories. So not only is there this tension there, we also end up dealing with other groups as well, like the White Tigers. And I do think it's cute that they all have these cat-like features, whether it be the little fangs coming out of their mouth or having the ears on their head. It's all just kind of adorable. Just has that slightly older anime aesthetic to it, and I appreciate it. Initially, their problem with each other is that Ray was once riding with them, and now he's with a whole different team from another country, and they are in their feelings about that. Also, it makes sense why Ray has some of those cat-like features as well. Now, this worldwide tournament takes the show in a fun direction that brings our main group here all over the world, as well as even going back to Japan in between, giving us time to explore China first so they can end up winning that part of the tournament there, coming back as victors who are praised for their skills, having some brief downtime in a series that really ends up moving a lot faster than you'd expect it to. After this, the Blade Breakers end up heading to the US, and it's there where we meet Max's mom, who operates this high-tech American training facility that not only looks crazy, but it trains people like crazy. Seeing this assistant of hers wipe the floor with Max using a tennis racket. Like, are you freaking kidding me? She used a tennis racket, dude. Funny enough, that assistant is a part of the American team that they will be going up against. So this makes things more worrisome for what's to come in the tournament there. And I do love how each member of the American team represents a different sport and uses it as influence for how they play Beyblade, which in the context of the show is seen like a sport. Even though the American team is highly engineered to be as great as they are, the Blade Breakers end up on top thanks to their skills, bit beasts, and some level of believing in one another. Aww. As they now head to Europe for the next part of the tournament, things start to get a bit more complicated as the world of Beyblade expands outside of just these constant tournaments. Firstly, while traveling by boat, Tyson meets a strange character named Robert, who ends up easily defeating him, giving us a chance to see that the Blade Breakers Breakers aren't just going to be these undefeatable superstars. They still have a lot to learn with more challenges ahead, especially when in Europe they end up getting introduced to a bad guy Beyblade syndicate of sorts called the Darkbladers, who kind of look like the rare hunters from Yu-Gi-Oh's Battle City arc. They also all seemingly represent different classic horror creatures, and they go after the Blade Breakers to get a hold of their bit beasts for their own purposes of gaining more power. But in continuing on their European tour here, they start individually meeting these other incredible Beybladers throughout different countries, with one of them ending up being Robert from earlier. Hey, that's convenient, maybe, I don't know. Either way, these characters form the group known as the Majestics, who have their own team issues of not really working together. Yeah, they are quite powerful on their own, but when it comes down to the Blade Breakers having a battle against them, they end up losing because of their problems in not working well together, making them realize where they can grow and get better. After this, our group ends up in Russia, as we see how strict and tough things are when it comes to training done under the scary overseer Boris. Kai has some sort of connection from his past to Boris, and in thinking something isn't right, he ends up discovering that Boris, through his evil business that he is a part of known as the Biovolt Corporation, are working on perfecting the ultimate Beyblade, with Boris catching Kai seeing what's going on and explaining to him that this is Black Dranzer, which is essentially like, you know, the cooler, way more evil version of what Kai has, and from this, his original interest in looking for power, wanting the ultimate Beyblade, all come rushing back. Despite everything he's been through with the others, it doesn't matter. The temptation was just too much, and the evil powers brought him back in, making him part of the bad guys now. But even then, he's going back around to previous circuits like the American team and defeating them all by himself, regaining these memories of powers from when he was younger, apparently using the ultimate Beyblade back then. Not only does he just defeat them, he starts taking their Beyblades like he's back to being a blade shark or something. He continues on to do this to the White Tigers as well, and it's just sad to see him regress into who he used to be or what he thought he wanted to be. And his team, or I guess now his old team, can't do anything to stop him. Kai ends up leaving his old regular Dranzer Beyblade and walks away from the group, and you can feel the heartbreak here, especially from Tyson. Those two ended up building a pretty interesting relationship where they clearly are in this rivalry category, and even a bit of the you and I are technically still enemies despite working together as a team and bonding category. Listen, it's just a weird time all around for this group, okay? For an evil organization plot, Kai's grandfather Voltaire, who is leading Biovolt, is wanting to take in all of these stolen Beyblades in the efforts of taking over the world. Yeah, a bit generic, I know, but if your show didn't have some organization that wanted to take over the world in a silly way or have silly reasons for doing so back around this time at the turn of the century and early 2000s, then like, did you even exist? Look, at this point, you just have to accept it for what it is, you know? Sure, I'll joke around about questioning things, but at the end of the day, this is all just some silly fun that's going on here in the show. I do like how our characters end up dealing with Kai here though, as at first, Tyson, Kenny, and Ray have a confrontation with Kai, to which they all lose to him, but then Max comes in, having a more powerful and upgraded version of his Beyblade and beast inside of it, being able to go up against Kai long enough for Tyson to get out Kai's original Dranzer, with the spirit of the beast coming out, as Kai has to really face what has been happening and what he's been doing, leading to him having a moment of clarity where he understands fully what he's caused, and all the wrongdoing he now regrets. This ends his evil arc, at least for now, maybe, who knows, as he stops using Black Dranzer, taking back his original Beyblade, Bit Beast and all, as he is now back with the group. And it was an exciting conclusion to what Kai was going through, with the power of true friends being there for you no matter what. Now, after all of that, the group gets ready for the World Championship Finals, where they end up going against the Demolition Boys, aka the Beyblade battling group that is under Biovolt. Kai ends up going first, but even with any advantages that he thought he would have going into this, he ends up losing the first round. And beyond that, feels pretty stuck in not knowing what to do, and is all like, leave me alone, I need time to think. But in this time of thinking, his evil grandfather ends up trying to offer him Black Dranzer again, making it seem like it's the only way to win, tempting him as much as possible to come back to the dark side. But when Kai returns to the match for the next round, he's still using his original Dranzer, giving it everything he's got, because if he does lose, hey, at least he didn't lose by any other way than having faith in his Bit Beast spirit and his own skills. But he ends up losing again, and what hurts worse is that the winner ends up claiming his Beyblade, meaning he not only lost, he also lost his Bit Beast buddy. Am I saying Bit Beast too much in this video? I'm sorry about that. Aside from that, we get to see Ray have a chance to go all out and really show his skills, so much so that even though he ends up winning his match against the Demolition Boys, he ends up passing missing out from it all, but things could have been more deadly if it weren't for his Bit Beast saving his life by sacrificing his, sadly leaving his Beyblade now blank. What is nice to see is that when he's slowly waking up, it's not only his team around him to make sure that he's okay, but also the White Tigers, his old team, giving him love and support and being hopeful about his Bit Beast coming back one day. It's actually really sweet and a nice way to show how much his old team still really cares for him no matter what. But now it's time for a big match with Tyson going up against Tala, who ends up really changing things for how these battles go. Tala at one point claims that he is going to unleash a new power that no one has ever seen before, something that was manufactured by Boris himself through Biovolt, as he unleashes the power of his Bit Beast, to which Kenny calls it a mutant Bit Beast, as the power that it lets out covers the area in snow and freezing temperatures. No one knows what's going on. Even the host is all like, hey, is this legal? Can someone get the rulebook out here? What, should I do something about this? But in the intensity of it all, and everyone being worried for Tyson, somehow it seems that he was brought into this other frozen tundra-like realm, surrounded by nothing but ice and darkness. Definitely not the Shadow Realm though, just saying. Also, Tyson lets out the worst, and I mean the worst, line read out of the entire show. At least during a moment where we probably needed something a little more emotional or filled with some depth.
Where am I?
Like, it sounds like he's fake yelling, and I just can't get over it. Anyway, even when all seemed grim for Tyson, the spirit of Dragoon helps save the day, reassuring Tyson that he has what it takes. He has his friends that care about him. He can do this, and together, they are able to break the ice barriers to return back to the battle arena. And at this moment, the Darkbladers return, watching from the sidelines with the other teams as they say that Tyson has figured it out. And we're not talking 90s Nickelodeon game shows hosted by Summer Sanders, we're talking about Tyson channeling his energy into his blade, with the Darkbladers saying they wouldn't miss seeing this for the world. With Tyson having the confidence back in himself to go up against such a powerful force, maintaining his belief in Dragoon, who claims to never leave him because of that, Tyson is able to defeat Tala and win the match. And because of Tyson, the BBA also get to see what the Biovolt Corporation was really up to, saying they are putting a stop to them. And they're all talking about Voltaire being put away for all of his crimes. But he's literally like, nah, I'll be back, I guess, and just leaves, and everyone involved in that conversation is just okay with it. Okay, sure. Anyway, everyone's Beyblades return to their owners, and everyone respects one another now and has a joyous celebration. Yay, a nice happy end to Beyblade. Well, at least the first season, that is. Even though Tyson is the current world champion, it doesn't mean that he's not ready for some more adventures and battles ahead. So now let's take a look at the second season of Beyblade, Beyblade V-Force. Entering in on the second season of the series, Beyblade V-Force has our world sensation Beyblade group break up. Or I guess just disband, as the tournaments are all over and they all still have their own lives. It seems that Tyson is the only one left around after Max and Ray return to their home countries, and Kai, well, he's just gone for now. He's a mysterious guy with a lot going on. Maybe some space will help him in the moment. At least Tyson has Kenny, right? For now, we do get to focus on Tyson being back home and getting to live in the world of him being this Beyblade superstar, much to a detrimental degree because this does regress his character a bit to being sometimes too egotistical, needing some things to bring him back down to reality because of how much his ego may have been inflated. To be fair, it's not him alone who is making him feel this way, it's the world around him. Like, imagine being at his age, being a world champion blader, and now just getting the chance to go up against you in a Beyblade battle is considered a prize that businesses who are running smaller tournaments are offering. Unfortunately, this type of behavior also translates from just being a hobby thing and into this regular day-to-day life, like when he's at school, feeling beyond being in this place and not worrying about the education of the others around him. So to start giving some pushback on his nonsense, we have the character of Hillary, a girl in his class that couldn't care less about what the heck a Beyblade is or what you do with them. She's just tired of hearing about it and dealing with Tyson's attitude in general. She's also going to become a character that's a lot similar to Kenny, and I mean that she kind of pals around with the group, but also kind of lends a hand in understanding what to do sometimes. Despite not being into Beyblades or whatever. Now, what's a new season season of the show without a new added-in gimmick that can probably be used to sell more toys in conjunction with the Beyblades themselves outside of the show, right? Well, we get a new meaning of what BBA can stand for, and that's these Beyblade Battle Analyzers, being something that Kenny specifically would find the most interesting because, you know, he's just a sick little freak when it comes to data analysis. If you're saying that this thing can help with understanding win chance percentages and come in a few different color options, man, you're speaking his language. We're seriously only a few uses away from what this thing could possibly do before some kids who can travel to a digital world mistake it for one of their devices, if you catch my drift. Now, funny enough, you'd think that this would have been put into the show to strictly make a new product to make as a toy to sell. And yeah, no surprise, there was a toy made for it, but only in Japan, which I think is kind of wild that they didn't at least try to make this a product available around the world in all of the other markets where Beyblade is getting popular. Anyway, looking at how things are going for the local Beybladers in town, we head over to the tournament that is taking place, and where everything would be normal and fun, instead what happens, and stop me here if you've heard this before, is we get to meet a mysterious new character who is called Mr. X. Not to be confused with this dude from Resident Evil. He ends up being this insanely talented Beyblader who not only defeats everyone in the tournament, but also takes out Tyson in the end, and hey, maybe it'll help keep that ego in check, am I right? You also may have noticed that in the Beyblade battles themselves now, the actual Beyblades are no longer drawn and animated in 2D. Instead, they are now made as 3D assets for the efficiency of making these scenes easier to animate and wanting to make it feel more dynamic. Also, it's probably cheaper. Around this time anyway is when we would see most 2D animated shows adopting this 3D animated assistance when it came to other assets that they wanted to blend in. Growing up, if this was super blatant, I always hated it because it took me out of the show, but today, as long as it's not ridiculously jarring, I am fine with it. Heck, do you know how much anime is technically 3D animated now, but made to look mostly like it's not? It's pretty wild, and the blending of it all has gotten much, much better. Now, in saying that, if you have a show that has the art direction of blending all different types of animation together like Gumball or Smiling Friends, stuff like that, then yeah, it's purposeful and I get it. That's fine. And in those cases, I like it. My original problem stems from shows that would be 99% 2D animated, then all of a sudden some 3D asset gets used because it was cheaper and less time consuming to animate it that way and insert it in, making it feel so unnatural and jarring when it would show up. However, for Beyblade here, while I love the 2D animated look of the battles of the first season, I don't mind the 3D look here, and if anything, it's kind of cool how much more real the Beyblades themselves look, which subliminally makes me go, oh, I want that one, because it would be a closer one-to-one comparison from how it looks in the show to how it looks in real life. Either way, I think how they blended it in is a good example of when 3D animation could be used in a 2D animated series. For the most part, there are some shots where you can tell that, yeah, that 3D asset is just put right on top of a 2D animated thing and they're not in the same world. But for like 2001, 2002, it's fine. Also, you probably noticed the character designs changing this season as well. I'm just pointing that out now, but I'll make sure to touch back on that later. So yeah, this mysterious new Mr. X character is not only a force to be reckoned with at the local tournament, but he's also not alone, with us seeing that both Max and Ray had their own run-ins with mysterious bladers at the same time who easily beat them as well, which is suspicious. Even weirder is that as Kenny is trying to do his research and collect data, he sees what can't be seen, as within Mr. X's Beyblade lies an invisible bit beast. Tyson, of course feeling a type of way about what happened at the tournament, ends up coming across Mr. X again, wanting to challenge him this time to hopefully redeem himself for their previous match. Mr. X then says his real name is Ozuma, and despite Tyson's gusto to want this rematch, he quickly loses once again to him. There's a bigger problem though going on for him, and that's the fact that for some reason he can't use Dragoon, only frustrating him further and mentally making things harder for him. Even crazier is that some other mysterious men are there too, documenting the situation, as they then later on end up trying to kidnap Kenny and Hillary, mainly for Kenny's laptop, and now that's 2 seasons in a row where Kenny is kidnapped for his laptop. Tyson does his thing and goes off to rescue them, having to face off against this spider or crab-like robot, but instead of him strolling in there, winning and saving his friends, he still loses. In fact, he loses twice. It's not until his 3rd time asking for one more chance to battle where he is able to finally get Dragoon to come out, with this also being a trap to try and capture Dragoon, making things more difficult and more worrisome for what the heck Tyson is even having to deal with here. And by the way, this whole thing is taking place on a ship, and despite Tyson being able to set Dragoon free and still win, he needs to get out of there with both Kenny and Hillary, with the ship being on fire and could explode at any minute. opponent. Man, what is it with kid-focused games or sports and cartoons that makes everything so dangerous and life-threatening towards the kids, I swear. Anyway, we have more problems to deal with because now it seems that there are two different groups of bad guys coming after them. Here we get to see Team Psychic through their leader, Gideon, and lead scientist, Dr. B. They're after the other's bit beasts for research and development purposes. On the other side of things, we have to deal with Ozuma and his group, who go by the Saint Shields, as they are after the bit beasts as well, it seems, but for other reasons. Now, after we get the base idea of what's going on, we do finally get to see what's going on with Kai, as he ended up going into Beyblade retirement. Man, going into retirement at like 13 is crazy, but good for him, I guess. For real though, he's done with being a blader. He's just focusing on his academics, going to a prep school where he's trying to just hide Dranzer and not deal with being brought back into the world of Beyblading. Once this other classmate who is a Kai fanboy ends up finding and taking Dranzer for himself to use in a battle against the guy who is hounding Kai to battle him, he loses, with Kai basically saving his life before this other kid falls off the roof. And this gets Kai back into blading, going up against this random dude as their match then ends in a draw, leaving Kai inspired again to now end his retirement, believing this character that he was battling to be a worthy opponent. And it's nice to see him smiling and feeling passion and finding what he perceives as purpose somewhat again. That thrill of having a new challenge to push yourself towards overcoming. It's a great return moment for this character, not that it's been so long since we've seen him, but it's a fun enough way to technically reintroduce him into the series. Now that he's back and Tyson reunites with him, they end up having to both deal with this character named Snakey, who is a part of Team Psychic, as he ends up trying to show off this new Beyblade technology called Magtrum, effectively messing with and creating a magnetic field around the Beyblade and surrounding area to boost the power of their Beyblade. This was more so a test of the technology though, a prototype if you will, so it's not perfect. And so Snakey is defeated while Kenny takes in the data from the technology used. I will come back to that point in a second and talk more about this specific new feature because of what it produces from this, but just hold on for literally a few moments. For now, the Blade Breakers are getting back together because of this new official battle that's being set up between the Blade Breakers and Team Psychic, thanks to Gideon getting a match between them set up through the BBA. In studying what the heck is going on with these magnetic new features Team Psychic's Beyblades have, Kenny and Tyson come together to figure out that they need something similar in order to counter the Magtrum technology, leading to Kenny to reach out to Max and his mom so that she can help engineer something for Max to bring over. Now that the gang's all here, we have both Max and Ray come into town, and of course, Max brought the goods with him, introducing us to the MG core, which they can integrate into their Beyblades. It should be able to also generate a magnetic force field in the efforts to have full control of the blade, with Kenny teasing that it could do that if you master using it, which kind of leads us to how we see, through the Blade Breakers using them, struggles in mastering it. Who would have thought? Now, not for nothing, but this is a kind of fun way to look at this new tech and how they use it. It takes a lot of training and practice, but the technology itself isn't just perfect. There are issues with the MG core, but it could stem from the construction of it being based on the data Kenny got from what was essentially a prototype version of the Magtrum. We see how Team Psychic is constantly testing and trying to get the Magtrum perfected in their facilities. It's not like it was fully ready for the world to see when it was first shown off in the show. So if Kenny based all of his data on something with problems, then yeah, it makes sense that the thing that he developed, the MG core as we see it, would have problems too, aside from user error and not fully getting the grasp of using it. It's just a little detail to think about that I think is kind of cool. But now let's talk about the real important thing here, real life toys. So with all of this being based on magnets now, this would be turned into a new mechanic for the physical Beyblade toys in the ways of having the MagnaCore line of magnets in stadiums that would effectively mess with the way the Beyblades spin around the arena in the efforts of trying to imitate more of the dynamic and fun battling you'd see in the show, making you believe that maybe, just maybe, your Beyblade is alive with a spirit inside, making it more exciting to see what could possibly happen, or even just making it look as if there was some control over the randomness factor of a real-life spinning top. In continuing on in the show, however, the Blade Breakers end up getting on a bus and heading out to the match. But that's not what really happens, no. Instead, they are knocked out cold from some sleeping gas and wake up only to find themselves now on a random island as Team Psychic has some devious plans at play that put these kids, who are all technically kidnapped again by the way, right back in another dangerous situation. So what's up with this whole island business, huh? That's what everyone in the show Lost said as well. For the Blade Breakers' time here on this random island, it begins a hunting ground for Team Psychic to face off against the Blade Breakers individually, putting them through some tough challenges based on the surroundings and circumstances of the matches, as well as Team Psychic testing more of their own technology in these battles. Plus you see Gideon and Dr. B trying to also take their bit beasts if they can with the traps that they have set up to use in the battles. It's a rough bit of survival for everyone, but thankfully by the end of this whole diversion, the chairman of the BBA ends up bringing in a helicopter to rescue the kids, while the bad guys make their escape from the island with, once again, the whole place exploding. Now, from the plans not going the way they wanted, they need new evil plans. So rather than just trying to steal the Blade Breakers bit beasts again, this time they are going to invent something new based on all the data that they have collected, the cyber bit beasts. We'll come back to that in a minute because it's time for some more consumerism, am I right, guys? Well, the chairman, Mr. Dickinson, gets the Blade Breakers some new Beyblade launchers, making it so the launching sequence is cooler and slightly more convenient to do. But more importantly, toys. Boom, electronic launcher to feel like you're actually Tyson from the show. Boom, the Duotron. You can launch 2 Beyblades with it. Boom! I don't have a third example, I just wanted to say boom again. Wait, remember the Costco guys? Anyway, back to the cyber bit beasts where Team Psychic ends up recruiting more kid soldiers to essentially be their test dummies for trying out new things, bringing in the familiar face of the kid who's a fanboy of Kai, who we saw trying to use Dranzer in a battle, and Kai stepped in to save him. His name's Wyatt, and all he wants to do at the end of the day is impress his idol, Kai, and what happens with him is that he is given Cyber Dranzer to use as his artificial bit beast, and from there ends up getting the chance to show off in front of Kai as he goes up against the same person who he and Kai battled before. His name's Dunga and he's part of the Saint Shields as well, but things quickly end up going wrong with Wyatt using Cyber Dranzer as it ends up corrupting his mind, putting his sanity and his life for that matter in jeopardy as we see how Team Psychic has no care in the world for the kids that they are recruiting and testing these dangerous inventions out with. Also, yeah, Wyatt dies from this. Not in the English dub, of course, but like, okay, that's awful. Thanks, Beyblade. This then leads to a Yu-Gi-Oh! Battle City Finals type of setup where the Blade Breakers go up against more of Team Psychic while ascending a tower with the opponents having these one-to-one copies of their bit beasts as cyber versions of them. Kai ends up battling the person who now uses Cyber Dranzer, leading to him feeling like at first he's dueling against Wyatt, feeling all of this guilt for what happened to him, but it's through this battle he feels he's doing it for Wyatt, to get his revenge for him, which is, yeah, that's one way to look at this for sure. But it's really Kai getting through his own mental struggles over what happened to Wyatt and the weight of it all. All of this proves to me that Kai is the most interesting character in the series thus far, having, at least to me, the most unique character arc between both seasons of the show as we explore deeper into the type of person he is, without blatantly just pointing out what's going on all the time. There's a nice blend of subtle and not so subtle character development, and I appreciate that level of thought put into this character. When it comes down to Tyson and his Dragoon having to go up against the Cyber Dragoon, Tyson ends up proving the difference of what makes a real bit beast one with an actual spirit, all the difference from some fabricated copy of one, being able to save his opponent from losing his mind as well, from bonding with the Cyber Dragon any further. Then the bad guys of Team Psychic, both Gideon and Dr. B, die. Well, kind of. I mean, of course, again, it's the English dub, it's just a mystery as to what happened to them. You know, things explode and cave in, and yeah, you know, there's no surviving it this time. You don't walk away from that, sorry. Also, Beyblade really likes killing people off, huh? Anyway, now that Team Psychic is dealt with, there's no breaks here as we get to deal with all of Saint Shield, as they are essentially the determining factors of who should be responsible for the power of these special bit beasts in general. But the Blade Breakers prove, at least for now, that they are responsible enough to hold on to them until the time is right for the Saint Shields to come back around and take them, threatening the Blade Breakers that they are not on the same side and that they will return soon enough. And that wraps up pretty much everything for the second season of Beyblade. Or so you thought, because there's still plenty more that happens within V-Force. So aside from regular bit beasts and cyber bit beasts, now we are going to get into ancient bit beasts, or rock bit beasts, or whatever you want to classify these as. Anyway, you remember at the start of the first season, with all of that mumbo jumbo regarding ancient Beyblade battles and stuff? Well, I guess there's something to all of that, as we see that Max's mom is now doing research on this weird rock that was found in the US. And then we also get another character introduction here, with that being Max's friend, Alan, who works as a tester at Max's mom's facility, as we see him then being part of the reason that the rock ends up getting stolen one of the nights from the lab, which sucks for Max because, like, that's his good old childhood friend, you know? And rather than just seeing that and going, he's a bad bad guy now, I guess. He wants to know why he did it. He wants to seek answers about his friend, which leads us to this Brooklyn mini arc where Max enters this tournament to eventually go up against Alan in it in the hopes of getting the truth out of him. Through this, we see that he made a deal with some shady underground people to help get this rock stolen, and in return, he would get this powerful bit beast so that he could be this great Beyblader that he desires to be. But of course, when it comes to actually using the power of the bit beast, nothing happens, and Alan was clearly swindled by the bad guys. Who would have thought? Leading to Max and Alan having a moment at the end of their battle that shows how Alan realizes the mistakes that he's made and then seemingly gets arrested.
Right to jail, right away.
But now there's still the problem of this missing rock, right? So that brings the characters back to Japan, where we get to learn about someone named Dr. Zagart, a character that is higher in the evil corporate ladder than the last bad guy that we had who died, but more interestingly, this guy has a connection to Mr. Dickinson, with the two of them being research partners decades ago. Together, they were both looking into this ancient rock that they found, leading to them unleashing this ancient bit beast, not knowing what they had even just done or what they really have in their hands here. But quickly after this, the rock, along with Dr. Zagart, had vanished, with that being the last time the two of them saw each other. Now, in modern day, Dr. Zagart is doing his evil dealings with the rock, wanting to move past this cyber bit beast business and go old school. Who needs technology when you got rocks, baby? He wants to pull out and harness the power of the ancient bit beasts inside of it, which in theory, these should be like super special and super powerful bit beasts that are all trapped inside or something, you know, like a real threat here. Hopefully. Anyway, back to the Bladers as we see a new character pop up in Tyson's life, with that being the character of Zeo, a character who is overly excited to meet and befriend a legendary champion such as Tyson. So aside from that not being great for Tyson's ego, the others see it as something a bit odd, but luckily Tyson can even feel the oddness from it too. You know, so that's good at least. He's growing up, proud of him. Anyway, we'll get back to Zeo later when he's important again, because now Kenny then shows off this device to Tyson called a Bit Searcher, which is another Digivice looking handheld, and seriously, what was with it in the early 2000s where every single show, minus maybe Yu-Gi-Oh, had to have some sort of, or a full array of, funky looking handheld pieces of tech, like the Pokédexes would get weirder shapes throughout the generations, the Digivices would change between generations, and now Beyblade is introducing more new handheld devices for the purposes of selling toys. Heck yeah, who could have guessed? But much like the other one that we mentioned earlier, this one was a toy that was only in Japan. I guess the market for this type of stuff was way better over there than it was in the US. Anyway, this Bit Searcher can track bit beasts, helping to aid the Blade Breakers in dealing with the attacks from the bad guys who are coming after them to test the powers of the bit beasts that have been extracted from the rock and have new mysterious powers that make battles more intense for the Blade Breakers. But before we really dive deeper into more of all that stuff, the Saint Shields come back and want the bit beasts. And I guess it wasn't that long of a wait for them to still be trying to get them from the Blade Breakers. Like, hey, we'll be back. You count your days. And then literally like the next day, like, all right, we're back. We told you. Hand them over. So aside from all of this business, as this part does connect to it, we do get some good lore drops here. Carved into this special stone itself, the translation says, "Dare not disturb this stone, for here the bit beasts are sealed," leading to the revelation that the ones who sealed these bit beasts away within the rock were the ancestors of the Saint Shields, giving Tyson and the others the epiphany that Ozuma and the others have mentioned that they want to take the bit beasts away from them in the efforts of sealing them away. When they meet up later with the Saint Shields, they agree to explain more of the lore of what happened in the past and why they are doing what they are doing, causing Ozuma to step out in front and start his story all like 10,000 years ago. And it's not supposed to be funny, but I just love how it's all presented and how the line is read from the voice actor. There's a lot of big pauses in what the character is saying as if you're supposed to have this time to react, but it's just here's something and then silence for like 10 seconds, and I love it. It's hilarious. But he starts talking all about the sacred spirits being the source of all of the blessings found on this planet, showing us visions of the past and how these spirits answered the calls for help. And things were looking pretty good for a happy and growing civilization. People feared and respected the spirits and the mighty powers they possessed, but of course, there were bad guys out there with evil intentions that wanted to control these spirits to cause harm and build up their own power. These once respected spirits who brought goodness onto the land were now the bringers of destruction, leading to a group of individuals who found a way to capture the spirits and seal them with inside the rocks. Then we get told about this evil brotherhood who had their spirits captured and sealed by the early on Saint Shields, who now want their revenge, opting to use the 4 strongest spirits that rule all of nature. And can you guess which 4 spirits those are? No, for real, just think about it for like 1 second. Got it? Yep, you're right. It's the 4 the Blade Breakers have, and that's why they are after them specifically. Apparently, when all of them are used together, their powers become unstoppable. But before that power could be realized to its maximum potential back in the past, the 4 spirits vanished, and over the past 1,000 years, the Saint Shields have passed down the technology to capture these 4 should they reappear, leading to now, where they technically have, and funny enough, are all around each other again. And hey, maybe unknowingly, the power of these 4 spirits brought this group together, drawing them in without even knowing it, regardless of how they became a group within the first season. You know, it's something to think about, okay? So yes, it's funny to see that 10,000 years ago, that there was Beyblading technology around, but I do appreciate the efforts in making it all look like the technology is ancient, specifically the launchers looking like primitive early on tools, and as we know from history, spinning tops have been around basically forever, so I think it's kind of cool how they explain and show this stuff without making it stupid. Like, sure, it's kind of silly, but in a fun and unique way. The lore overall just makes more sense than it feels like it should, giving a good reason for the Saint Shields to be going after them, especially in a world still filled with evil people who want to get them and use them for themselves. They have a genuine worry about that. But even in that story, the Bit Beasts weren't evil themselves. All of them that were causing destruction and harm were forced to at the hands of evil people, which is a deeper commentary that has the groundwork laid out through this. It's pretty interesting, and I do appreciate some good lore that ultimately makes sense and can also make other aspects, like motivations of characters, shine in a new light. While the Blade Breakers feel like they are getting attacked by this random group throughout the season, or are having to just deal with them and their attitudes, to the Saint Shields, they see themselves as the good guys. And from their perspective, they are. It's different from, let's say, how Thanos in the MCU sees himself as the good guy, even if he is doing wrong. He truly believes at his core that what he is doing is for the good of every living creature in the universe based on his own experiences, believing that his methods are the only right way to fix things in his mind. But here, both the Blade Breakers and the Saint Shields are technically the good guys. It's just where one group has a duty to fulfill, the other has no intentions of using what they have for evil. And they see these Bit Beasts as their friends, not as something to just control the power of. But with the chance of them falling into the wrong hands, that's not a chance the Saint Shields want to take. Through the long lineage of the Saint Shields, this is a duty that they must continue on. If their ancestors have been doing this and have been passing this specific technology down for 1,000 years, it doesn't matter what the situation is or who has them, no one should have them. These powers should be sealed away. It's at this point where the two groups really begin to collide, with them right then and there being able to take Ray's Bit Beast after defeating him to then seal it away, which is pretty rough, and that kinda stinks for Ray. Hashtag justice for Ray. For the next bit of time in the series, we focus on this back and forth between the Blade Breakers and the Saint Shields, where it ultimately leads to this big battle brawl of a showdown that takes place on the tracks of a roller coaster, which is pretty epic on its own. But when things get too dangerous where Ray's life is in danger, his Bit Beast escapes its rock imprisonment to save him, giving off this example of bonding and care that these Bladers have with these spirits. It wasn't like Ray had this forceful control over it, the spirit chose to do that. Through this happening, we get the introduction of the spirit evolving, essentially, as it goes up in power and the label of V getting added to the name, you know, playing into the whole title of V-Force. So outside of just putting together parts to upgrade the Beyblade itself, now the spirit within it can technically become more powerful and ascend to a greater ranking? I don't know, I just know that there is a lot of changes between the original and the dubbed version of things here, so it is what it is. Max gets to have this battle with Miriam from Saint Shield, who he's been personally having this back and forth with about Bit Beasts being friends to them, and through their battle here, she ends up understanding things from Max's and the other Blade Breakers' perspective, seeing how she values her own Bit Beast. And I think that these two resolve things pretty nicely. Tyson and Ozma have a final battle here where we get another moment of Dragoon speaking with Tyson, helping them power through to victory, which finally leads the Saint Shields collectively to understand that the spirits within the hands of the Blade Breakers are safe. There is something special here seen through their bonds that is undeniable. So with that, all is good. They see the spirits aren't just evil, they were just used for it. There is this growth that represents how things used to be and how they were seen one way, to how things aren't that way now. And just because they were once that way, doesn't mean that's how it's going to be today. With all of that being done, we are heading back to a wrap-up tournament arc to finish out the second season, where we bring back in the character of Zio, who shows off that he got an invite to the tournament himself. But more importantly for Zio, we get to see that his father is actually Dr. Zaggart, as he is then shocked to learn the information information that his father is the one behind the attacks on the Blade Breakers and trying to get a hold of their bit beasts. From overhearing all of this and then trying to question his father, Zio is then first told about Cerberus, this ultimate, unbeatable, and ultra-powerful bit beast that his father wants him to be the one to control, doing so in the effort to, yes, take down the Blade Breakers, but mainly to capture their bit beasts. When there is a reason asked for all of this because Zio doesn't understand why his father is like this, we end up not hearing the truth at this moment, but Zio does, leaving him utterly flabbergasted and in disbelief. But through this, there is a change in Zio and what will happen with him going forward. Aside from this, we see the Blade Breakers getting ready for the tournament, which is going to be a setup in a 2v2 style, making it so that they will need to split their group into 2 teams to take place in this tournament rather than just going in as individuals. Before this setup, Kai gets a taste of being teamed up against by these 2 characters named King and Queen that really devastatingly destroy him in battle. In fact, it was so bad, his Beyblade is left broken from the encounter, as these 2 specialize in defeating bladers in the efforts of taking their blade's best parts. So that didn't help for morale going into this tournament, but Kai ends up getting the chance to have his newly built Dranzer setup take out both King and Queen as he stops them from doing what they did to him to someone else. Now these 2 characters weren't just introduced for no reason, as we see them getting approached by the character Dr. K, who was a character that originally worked under Dr. Zaggart before they had a falling out recently, leading to her wanting to have her own setup going on now to use her smarts in building a team for the tournament, using King and Queen as her representation in the tournament. For the big ending of the season tournament here, we get to see mostly returning faces that are all taking place in it. This also includes the Saint Shields, and wow, look at that, Beyblade World Championship 2002. Now aside from the word championship being split into 2 words, making it seem like it involves some superior boat, seeing the year 2002, man, that just feels like such a distant time from now. Anyway, RIP to the Saint Shields because of the dirty tactics coming from both of their split team lineups. Now before that, King and Queen end up messing with Kane and Jim, destroying their Beyblades before their match with Tyson and Max, basically making it so Tyson and Max just advance to the next round, as King and Queen for their quarterfinals match take out Miriam and Joseph, while on the other side of the bracket, Zio and his partner Gordo end up taking out Ozuma and Dunga. So boom, that's all of them out of the tournament. And it's a good way to express how powerful the group underneath Dr. Zaggart is, as well as the group under Dr. K, showing off each of them having dirty tactics in play, with some on the battlefield and some outside of it. Tyson and Max have to give it their all to go into their match against King and Queen now, with Max using his upgraded and updated Beyblade to end up beating Queen, destroying her Beyblade in the process, which is a nice taste of her own medicine. Now in a last-ditch effort, Dr. K begins interfering with Tyson's Dragoon during his match with King, shooting these little particle beams to mess with the blade itself. But what is nice about this is that King takes a step back to what's going on, not wanting to win by Dr. K's interference. That's cheating. They don't stand for cheating. King and Queen told her no, as if they haven't been doing things that could easily be considered cheating or interference, but at least in this moment, we stan a changed King. So they then stop her from doing this, and her character for the series is now dealt with, but it was just cool to see her have this little side story to still be involved after her initial work underneath Dr. Zaggart, had come to an end. But yeah, back to King and Tyson finishing up their battle properly now. Tyson ends up winning in the end, no real surprise there. When it comes to Ray and Kai going up against Gordo and Zio now, Ray manages to tie with Gordo, as the real big match for this setup is with Kai and Zio, in order for us to really get a taste of what Zio has with Cerberus. Kenny is able to detect that there is some form of digital interference going on when doing his computer business to capture and understand all this Beyblade data, with us seeing this powerful force leaving the arena shattered and ending the match in Kai's defeat and his Dranzer being taken. Things are now at this big setup for the finals, and we get to take a moment outside of this for the Bladers to train and prepare themselves. This has Tyson getting overly worried to the point where he's being a jerk to all of his friends, putting all this pressure on himself and pushing the others away, including Max, and he's like the most harmless little character here. Now, thanks to Hillary for taking time and talking to Kai about the others needing his support, and that he shouldn't be this depressed, woe is me person right now for losing, especially when things feel a bit like they are falling apart because of Tyson. Kai snaps out of the funk that he is in and agrees to help. Now, I do think it's fair for Kai to be sad a decent bit here. I mean, he just lost Dranzer. He can have a moment to himself for some sad boy hours, okay, Hillary? Anyway, as Tyson is doing that cliche thing of hanging out in the arena alone before the big match, Kai confronts him, putting him to the test in the efforts of getting his mind right, and also proving in a way to both of them that having friends, having a group of people that care about you, that support you, that work alongside you, is this better path in life rather than being by yourself and going at it alone, which is really just a lot of growth for Kai, even if if it is helping Tyson here in this moment. For the finals, Tyson goes up against Gordo first, where he ends up defeating him with his Hyper Victory Tornado move, showing the power that Dragoon holds. For Max having to face Zio, well, I think you know how that one goes, but in the match, Zio shows off the power of Cerberus, where at one point he ends up playing Dranzer as well, where Cerberus then absorbs him, making Cerberus more powerful. And even crazier than when Zio wins by going all Kamehameha while capturing Max's Drasil Bit Beast is the major reveal about Zio. As he and Tyson start their big final round match, something happens to Zio's arm when he raises it, seemingly short-circuiting, ripping open what should be a massive wound, but instead, it looks like a hole that now exposes circuitry and mechanical parts. Literally, everyone gasps. I mean, like every VO had to give their own audible gasp or say, "Oh no," as we cut to every single character, which, you know, of course it makes sense, but all we see at first is the arm open up, and then there's like 20 seconds of cutting to everyone reacting to it without fully knowing what they're even looking at, ending the episode on Tyson stating, "Zio, you're a," before cutting to credits, you know, cutting off before he can audibly say, "Oh, he's a robot." Everything about this reveal though, and the reactions are a 10 out of 10. No notes needed whatsoever. Cinema. Absolute cinema. For the big finale to the season, we continue from this moment, as Zio is clearly not doing so well, but he doesn't let that stop him, saying, "Now you know who I am, but that won't stop me from defeating you," or whatever, as Tyson just replies with, "I guess." Look, sometimes the script from the dub is spot on, sometimes it's like they just needed some filler response that doesn't make sense for the character to say based on the animation and timings they had to work with. Either way, we then see inside of Zio, showing us his robotic build, leading to this special device that simulates a heart with something glowing inside of it. We finally get to learn the truth that Zio learned that one night from his dad, the night that changed him forever and led him to become all evil throughout the rest of his time in the season, and using Cerberus to capture the Blade Breaker's Bit Beasts. That night, his father told him that he is a robot. Shocker, I know. One that his dad put together after his son Zio actually died, recreating him then as this Zio, and telling him the reason he is after these Bit Beasts in general is in the efforts of making this Zio a real boy from their powers, or something. I don't know, it's like Pinocchio or whatever, just with more spinning tops and less whales. Dr. Zaggart is telling him that by using the power of the Sacred Beast, oh, sorry, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, I mean the Sacred Bit Beasts, he can put them inside of Robot Zio's mainframe, and then his dreams of having his son back can come true. So now this has Zio fighting in this battle in the hopes of it leading to him becoming human, allowing these themes of what it means to be human play out a bit, which is fine and great, and there's nothing wrong with that. I personally think there is something cool to explore here with that, but this is all happening in the final episode of the season. We can look back to see that sure, he has expressed different emotions, making friends, getting involved in a sport or hobby, whatever you classify Beyblade as at this point. But all that really means in the end is him having flashbacks to these moments and saying what he's done now is in the efforts of becoming human, when everything before finding out the truth about himself did make him human. It just feels like we're trying to stuff a lot right into this final episode, so while it's fine and it gets the job done at the end of the day, it feels like we're trying to cover way too much ground, way too fast, and all right at the end. While there seems to be a lot of emotion here at the end of the battle as well, there is this realness to how it actually comes to a final result. There is no big flashy moment to sell you on the over-the-top nature of these battles in the anime. Rather, it ends how most battles in real life would, by one top still spinning as the other top stops spinning, with Tyson becoming the back-to-back champion of this tournament now. Although there is this one part of the match where Dr. Zaggart tells Zio to go and capture Dragoon, with him letting out this long yell saying the word "now" for literally like 5 seconds, just holding that word, as they then flash back and forth between Zio and his robotic insides. And this moment stood out the most to me because of the serious nature of what Zio is being pushed through, and the silly nature of some of these line reads. Man, it's legendary stuff, I swear. From winning and Cerberus being defeated, Drasil and Dranzer end up returning to Max and Kai, as Zio claims that Tyson has now destroyed his dream. Rather than just make the message about this not being his dream, it was his father's, and that he doesn't need to live up to his father's dreams, he can have his own, Tyson ends up treating him just the same as everyone else, giving him praise for how tough of an opponent that he is, and that just because he didn't beat him, there's probably 1,001 things that he can do that Tyson can't. And that's cool. Tyson continues on to say that it doesn't matter if he's a robot, there's nothing wrong with being a little different. It doesn't mean that they can't be friends, it doesn't mean that they can't hang out, and it's through all of this that we see how good and thoughtful of a person Tyson can can be. Yeah, he has a big ego sometimes, yeah, he can be a jerk to his friends and especially Hillary, but just like in the original first episode of the series, we can see how he does support the others around him, boosting them up when they feel that they're at their lowest. So it's a nice trait to see in his character with how it gets to shine like it is right now. With Zio now feeling good about himself and no longer being evil, I guess, he appreciates how Tyson has treated him, making him feel what it truly means to be a human. Tyson then narrates the ending freeze frame, talking about if you're not happy with who you are, being something else won't make a difference, as he then talks about himself, figures, as he says that having his skills with Dragoon makes him a good blader, but having friends around him that support him and care about him are what make him happy, and that's what really counts. And then the season ends. That's it. We don't get the resolution to Zio and Dr. Zagart's father-son relationship, or what's Dr. Zagart going to do from this point on or anything. It's just an odd way to wrap things up, you know? Here's some commentary on what it means to be a human, about being yourself, about friendship, and then no real conclusion to what the plots were setting up with the bad guys. It's just over. Well, luckily for us, there is one more season to talk about and go through, so our time with the Blade Breakers isn't over just yet. Moving on from V-Force, we enter into the third and final season of the original Beyblade series. G-Revolution brings us back into this world with the Blade Breakers and what they've been up to by visually showing you the passing of time and actual physical growth. The designs of the characters and the overall look of the show have changed once again, and now when you look back between each of the 3 seasons, you get this really cool snapshot that most shows or anime don't always give you, with seeing these characters mature, both in substantial ways with what's happening for them in the series and once again visually. Just like we had in the previous season, we get to see new upgrades to blades themselves, where we'll see Tyson having his new version of his Dragoon Beyblade called Dragoon Galaxy, or, you know, Dragoon G, giving us the reasoning for the G in the title of the series right away. Anyway, here for his new Dragoon G is a brand new system for the blades called the Engine Gear System that really helps turn up the speed of the blades. We get this pretty fun introduction to them while Tyson is teaching younger bladers how to become great world champion bladers like himself, but also still showing off his skills and besting them in battle. We get a cool sequence of Tyson preparing his Dragoon using a special tool called the Turbo Winder that gets his engine gear ready for when he needs it to kick in, as he also sets up his launcher like it's the most intricate piece of technology ever built before letting it rip. In the middle of this battle, he ends up showing off that the gears in the EG system start spinning, and Dragoon becomes a lot faster and comes in heavier to end up winning this little battle he's got going on. And it's cool to see him having his ego boosted here, because it's for the sake of actually giving the kids a challenge to grow and not just letting them win. So in looking up to him and having fun, they're all just excited to do their best and give it their all. It's not long into all of this that we get introduced to the new character of Daichi, who appears to challenge Tyson right then and there, showing off his Beyblade called Strata Dragoon, causing Tyson to get into a heated back and forth with this kid during their battle about there only being one real Dragoon, but in the end, Tyson does end up knocking Daichi's blade out of the arena, which would mean that he won, right? Wrong. Daichi claims that where he's from, the whole world's the arena, and it's only over when one top falls over, egging Tyson to keep letting this play out as Daichi shows off some powerful skills that result in a dust tornado to form, but even so, Tyson gets his game on. Oh, sorry, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX again. Hey, don't fault me, okay? I just spent a total of over like 15 hours talking about it. Whew, but yeah, Tyson wins. Hooray. Real quick, funny enough, Daichi does have an origins within the manga, as this spin-off character that gets some focus in his own chapters, and before anyone says anything, there technically is a Beyblade movie called A Beyblade Fierce Battle that came out before G-Revolution that brings in the character of Daichi, but I am not talking about the movie right now, as it can make things confusing to talk about in conjunction with the anime series itself. Why? Because it's non-canon. It's a different version of Tyson and Daichi crossing paths, so don't worry about that right now. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I'm just saving you time from commenting to point it out. We'll get there. Now, after all this Daichi business, things get interrupted by, and you're never gonna guess this, a mysterious new character. Who could have seen that coming? This masked individual is Jin the Gale, and he challenges Tyson to a match, which eventually leads to them, that being Daichi and Jin here, essentially going at Tyson in a 2v1 style until Ray steps in to help Tyson. At the same time, Max is learning about some big announcements regarding the next Beyblade tournament, as he then comes rushing into the 2v2 battle here to tell them all about about it, saying the World Championships are back, which is great because surely time has passed for the characters here, but like watching these seasons back to back to back, and then to be fair, they all did premiere pretty close to each other once one season would finish, it just feels like we've just done this tournament twice, you know? But either way, it's back. They fixed the spelling of championship this time, and now it says 2003. Man, I'm old. Now this tournament, much like the last season, is all about tag team setups here for the overall outcome. Tyson ends up having to deal with Daichi a lot more since he's all about having another rematch with him to the point where he's following Tyson to his house, and then his grandfather offers him to stay, but like, man, his dialogue it's really just, ugh, okay, fine. I'll read exactly what he says here. I'm so sorry about this.
Dudes, this is no time to be raising the roof. What's the skinny, Tyson?
You all at the bare minimum better subscribe or at least just drop a like. So Tyson's not happy about all this hospitality that is being given to Daichi with his grandpa getting along too well with the kid here. But more important things are going on, like getting into the tournament itself, as the Blade Breakers are going to end up splitting up at this point. Max ends up getting a letter from his mother about wanting him to come join the American group, and Ray ends up really thinking about his place in this Beyblade world, which will ultimately lead him to deciding to head back to China and be with his original team. Tyson doesn't quite understand things in the moment, but it's the realization of him having not only tougher opponents ahead, but also his former teammates to worry about that gets to him a bit. Now, before all of the goodbyes are done with the teammates going back to their home countries, Jin ends up trying to truly test Tyson's skills, but the invite ends up getting in the hands of Ray, who does take on this challenge that was offered. And during this moody and stormy battle, Jin really pushes Ray in it, saying that he's good, but he can be way better. He needs to properly push himself. From this dramatic fight that includes a lightning strike to end things off, Ray ends up taking to heart all of this talk about being better, wanting to for sure go and follow the path that he believes he needs to be on. We also get to see that Max gets introduced to a new member on the American All-Stars team aside from himself, named Rick Anderson, who by the way is in real time controlling his own soundtrack because of the boombox he's carrying. I found that pretty funny, and that character's also just mean and tough to work with at the moment. We do also get to see that Jin approaches Kai, essentially being all like, hey man, 2 members have quit the team already. You need to be standing by Tyson's side now. It's the only way for you to win this tournament. And Kai's all like, who are you? And don't tell me what to do.
Have a good day.
Don't tell me what to do.
When Tyson and Daichi end up getting to registration for the World Championships, Jin ends up appearing again, telling them that he isn't there signing up for himself, and he really just ends up making Tyson worry about Kai not showing up in time to be his partner in this tournament. And this just leads to a funny bit where, after being rude to the BBA staff member about signing up and now wanting him to wait longer until closing registration, the staff member goes, oh, you know, I would have considered it if you were nicer to me. And then when Tyson starts trying to be extra nice to him, he goes, that's not gonna do you any favors, kid. I only take bribes. And I swear, that's the funniest joke in the series thus far, with how it's set up and then delivered. Give this staff member a raise. After Tyson goes back and forth with himself about feeling abandoned by his friends, but also understanding that they have their own paths to go on, and if, for example, Kai doesn't want to show up and be a part of this tournament, it doesn't have to. That's his choice. Luckily for Tyson, Kai does end up showing up, and along with Tyson and Kai, Daichi and Kenny have signed up to take part in it all as well. Now, through this whole setup to see who will be representing Japan, Tyson and Kai are the ones that make it through, no worries, with Kenny and Daichi getting the chance to be chosen as alternates for them as a new team is formed in general. Goodbye Blade Breakers, hello team BBA Revolution. The chairman is explaining and setting up everything for the group here, mentioning the tournament will be done in the style that is known as round robin format, meaning that rather than seeded brackets, each team will have to face off against every other team at least once. And also, this is where Jin comes in again, and we get some big reveals with his character, as he comes in as the team's official coach. After Tyson questions all of this and says, I don't even know who this guy is, but the guy here turns out to be his older brother, Hiro, who we see in a flashback to him training Tyson when he was younger, even being the one to give Tyson the hat that he's been wearing the entire series. Where has his brother been all this time? I don't know. But he's back now, and he says he's hid his identity to make sure coming back was the right choice to make, and the two brothers have this emotional reconnection moment, and it's sweet. Tears are flying, they're yelling each other's names. But now in regards to Max and Ray, through them leaving and being a part of other teams now, it really shows that these previous members of the Blade Breakers need to go on their own personal journeys of growth in order to understand for themselves that they can be great on their own, and that they haven't just been carried by Tyson the entire time, putting in this drive for them all to want a shot at going against Tyson for the title of World Champion this year. And of course, Ray and Max do have their own stuff going on for how their team training goes, and they do end up qualifying as representatives of their countries, leaving Kai being the only member still being around to what is now the newly named BBA Revolution Group. That is, until when it's time to travel for the championships and he sneaks away, revealing that he now has joined back up with the Blitzkrieg Boys, formerly known as the Demolition Boys that we saw back in Season 1, with this only getting revealed to Tyson and the others when seeing it on a news broadcast. For the teams that are competing here, we end up getting Max and Rick for the PPB All-Stars, Ray and Lee for the White Tigers, or White Tiger X, Kai and Tala for the Blitzkrieg Boys, and stepping up from an alternate to be with Tyson is going to be Daichi. Through the time they have spent thus far in the show, I do like how similar they really are, and despite Tyson being annoyed with him all the time, you can tell there's some genuine care as if this dynamic is more of an apprenticeship. Aside from the groups we are already familiar with, we meet some other teams from around the world like Julia and Raul from Spain with their team F Dynasty. And for Europe's representation, we have the Barthez Battalion, which has Miguel as like the main lead blader of the group, with these 3 others that are in rotation that'll come in and out depending on the matches, with that being Matilda, Claude, and Aaron. Starting off the tournament in the US, the first matchup gives us Tyson and Daichi going up against Ray and Lee right away, but because of Tyson and Daichi basically being the same in so many ways, they end up clashing rather than properly working together in the battle, resulting in them losing in the first round. As for the other matches that take place, the PPB All-Stars end up defeating the Barthez Battalion, with this bringing in the dirty tactics that their coach Barthez is going to be pulling or making his team pull, regardless if they don't want to. An injury happens from this matchup that could have been avoided, but Barthez made sure that Claude would just eat the debris coming his way so Barthez can pull sympathy from the crowd overall. But this is just the start of these type of tactics. For the matchup between the Blitzkrieg Boys and F Dynasty, Kai and Tala end up winning no problem. From losing right away, Tyson puts all the blame on Daichi, but through his moping around, he ends up getting a real lesson and learning that he isn't unbeatable thanks to his brother Hero whooping him in a battle real quick, hoping to break him down a bit so that he can rebuild properly and not be pure ego-driven in his ways. Now in Rome for the next set of matchups, Tyson is pulled out of playing for now and sat on the sidelines based on his own behavior, leading to Kenny and Daichi being the ones to go up against the Blitzkrieg Boys, where Daichi was set up to go against Kai, but Kai gives up because Tyson's not playing this round. As for Kenny going up against Tala, he does a pretty good job showing why he has earned a spot on this team, being able to perform at these more intense levels of play with professionals from all around the world, but in the end, he loses. In the spirit of truly working together, Kenny uses his data he's collected to help Daichi perform at his best for when he goes up against Tala to ultimately decide this tiebreaker, leading to Daichi actually winning. This will hurt Tyson's ego a bit because of how the other members of his team are genuinely working together and not just following Tyson's lead or letting him just take control. Tyson does, however, start understanding his faults, leading to him apologizing after Daichi wins, giving them genuine respect as bladers and not seeing them as less than because of the status that he has earned throughout the years. The White Tigers end up losing to the Barthez Battalion, which will lead to something important for Lee because of this. But for the last matchup here, the PPB All-Stars end up taking out F Dynasty as we all head over to the next location, which is in Spain. Something that I thought was handled in a pretty realistic way that you wouldn't expect to see in something like this is what happens during the match between the White Tigers and F Dynasty. First in an unofficial non-tournament match and then later on during the real match, as Lee ends up having forms of panic attacks that he refuses to let the others know about until he can't really hide it during this main match. Ray ends up taking this seriously and not focusing on the match as it comes to an end with them losing this round of the tournament. Yeah, anyways, who cares about the match when your boy is not doing good, you know? As he immediately shifted his attention to make sure Lee is okay and giving real attention to these types of medical issues with how serious they can be, especially if they are being suppressed and not dealt with. I think all of this was a pretty interesting angle to take things, and I got caught off guard for how well I think it handled all of it, leading to some really emotional moments with the White Tigers that show how tight their bonds truly are. For the next match, things get pretty awesome with the PPB All-Stars going against the Blitzkrieg Boys, as Kai and Max get to have this really great battle, as both of them have a great level of respect for one another, and even when Kai ultimately wins, Max knows that it was a fantastic matchup, and that he gave it his all, and Kai won fair and square. Of course, Rick, his not-so-nice teammate, is still a jerk about all of this, but after he wins against Tala, and then has to face Kai for the tiebreaker, Kai ends up defeating him by switching his strategies mid-match, as Max watches in all of the skills Kai truly possesses. Now, before Tyson and Daichi have their match with the Barthez Battalion, Kenny shows off his data that has proof of them cheating in matches, with the example being Miguel's Beyblade having a secret weapon that can pop out at any time Miguel wants it to that can cause damage to an opponent's Beyblade. But rather than report this in, Tyson says regardless if they are cheating, that they're gonna beat them fair and square. And seriously though, who would want to restart this whole tournament over again, you know? First up though is Daichi going against Matilda, who by the way has pink hair and her Beyblade is called Pierce Hedgehog. Might as well have just named her Amy, if you get what I'm saying. Well, basically she's forced to literally explode her Beyblade, sacrificing it and the win here in order to damage Daichi's Beyblade to have it hurt or out of commission in future matches. She didn't want this. Again, the players on the Barthez battalion for the most part don't want to be cheaters. They're just being forced to. For Tyson going against Miguel, it seemed like Miguel's cheating took out Tyson here, but Tyson was prepared for this. He wanted to face it head on. And in doing this, he is able to get Miguel to no longer listen to Barthez so that they can have a fair match to finish it up, leading to Tyson taking the win here. We get to see more of Tyson's kind nature with this kind of stuff afterwards, where he is really nice to Miguel, saying that he's proud of him and encouraging him to basically be on the right path and get out of the influence or force of those who follow the wrong path. But Miguel is still kind of struggling later on, trying to figure out what purpose to blade for when he and the rest of the team are being extremely punished by Barthez as they all get to Egypt and prepare for their next set of matches. When it came down to their matchup against the Blitzkrieg boys, they do end up losing, but Miguel made sure that he was going out on his own terms. No cheating whatsoever, as well as him firing Barthez as a coach. So it's good to see that he came out the other side of this going down the right path. And you probably should have fired him a long time ago. Max and Rick then have to face Ray and Lee in this sort of free-for-all type of setup where you could be hitting your own partner in the match, and yes, with Rick being Rick, things aren't so in sync between him and Max. Luckily for the other side of things, Lee has been feeling better and ends up overcoming his anxieties and faintness, being able to then win the free-for-all. Then, oddly enough, for Tyson and Daichi's match against F Dynasty, they end up losing, which genuinely shocks everybody, including me. Come on, F Dynasty? More like F them, am I right?
Oh, brother!
But either way, they still lost, and that sucks. Anyway, we head to Australia now for the next set of matches. Daichi gets beat up by kangaroos in a boxing match, and through some training, Tyson is able to work out his problems about being seen and referred to as a champion always, leading to a moment where he meets up with the original Blade Breakers crew, telling them that he is a blader first and a champion second, not letting that title drive who he thinks he is or how he should be perceived, sending out his Beyblade to smash some rocks, to which all of them are like, heck yeah, dude, that's tight. Cool stuff, man. That's the Tyson we know. As they all make their vows to be giving it their all against one another for the matches, offering some mutual respect and showing us the friendship between them all is still there before the tournament continues the next day.
Beyblade! Assembly required.
This is where things are going to start getting pretty intense now. These matches will decide who is going to make it into the finals in Japan afterwards based on all the accumulated points. The first match gets a fight between the Barthez Battalion and F Dynasty out of the way. Not that it's not good or that I don't care about the characters involved here, it's just, you know, they aren't the four Blade Breakers getting to have these intense build-up showdowns, you know? Well, F Dynasty ends up winning the match with the Barthez Battalion now out, but I will highlight that the four of them have such a nice moment where they want Matilda to go in for the second match, surprising her as they built her a new Pierce Hedgehog, letting her know how important she is to them and the team, and despite losing, they all leave the tournament happy, feeling good about themselves, and have changed in the ways that make them feel free in the end. But now, oh boy, now we are getting to the really big matches, starting us off with the White Tigers facing the Blitzkrieg boys. Having Lee and Tala go head to head first, which isn't super long, Lee loses pretty quickly, but this builds up to all of the White Tigers coming together to put all of their faith into Ray, as he now has to face Kai, and this matchup is the craziest battle yet, as both of them are giving it everything they've got, sending in moves and using tactics that would defeat most any other blader easily, but not one another. And just when you think one of them has to tire out from it all, things were just getting started. Kai ends up revealing that the whole cape setup that he's been wearing, aside from making him look cool, was actually heavily weighted for training purposes, dropping it to the ground to start revealing his true strength. This was his Rock Lee taking off his ankle weights moment, which, funny enough, happened before we would see that moment in the anime, as this episode came out in Japan on June 9th, 2003, whereas episode 48 of Naruto came out on September 3rd, 2003. So Beyblade beat this moment to animation, but manga-wise, Chapter 82, Lee's Secret, came out on July 9th of 2001. Sorry about that tangent. I know that I can be annoying, and I do that sometimes. I just think it's fascinating. I'm sorry. So this moment happens, and he goes further than he ever thought he would, pulling out a move that he claimed to wait to use until facing Tai, but it seems he overlooked just how incredible of a blader Ray is. He has that dog in him, he has heart, and he's giving it his all too. I mean, he literally almost goes Super Saiyan after Kai drops his Piccolo-looking cape. In the end, Kai pulls off his new secret move called Blazing Gigs Tempest, nearly knocking Ray out from the loss as he starts to collapse like he did back in the first season. This time, however, his team is right there to catch him, holding him up to stand proud of how hard he fought in this battle. The White Tigers, though, have officially lost and are now out of the tournament, but Ray really gave quite the performance, and this all just proves why he's the best character. Well, at least my favorite character. Kai at this point plays things off really cool, as if what he did to win didn't completely wear him out, but once he's alone, we get to see how much energy it took from him, claiming to himself that he is now ready to face Tyson head on. Speaking of Tyson, he and Daichi are up next, going up against Max and Rick, where we see Daichi defeat Rick, with Tyson getting to have a pretty intense match with Max right after. Tyson does end up taking the win, leading to a nice supportive moment between the two afterwards, with Max being happy for Tyson to be moving forward, and hey, even Rick decides to start being nice from this point, telling Max that he did a good job and gave it his best efforts, but from that, the PPB All-Stars are also now eliminated. At this point, we head back to Japan, where we get this last match between BBA Revolution and F Dynasty, all to see who is going to make it to the actual final match against the Blitzkrieg Boys. And with this battle being a 2-on-2, Tyson and Daichi end up really working together here in order to pull off a victory to officially send them to the big final match to determine who the world champion team is going to be. After this, while Tyson and Daichi get a bit of time to rest up before the big final match that will happen on the same day, we get to see the other teams have some fun in a special match between them all. But despite already feeling worn out from the day, and Daichi having some issues recently of pushing himself past his limits, causing him to collapse, it all catches up to him even harder through his match against Tala in the finals. Daichi gave these extra pushes of effort to help stall for time so Tyson can rest up and have his Dragoon all fixed up and ready for his match. So once Tyson gave Daichi the notice that he doesn't have to stall anymore, Daichi gives it everything he's got, resulting in a draw, with Daichi then passing out from exhaustion. But for the big final match, we have Tyson going up against Kai. But to make things feel more even, we see that in the background before this match took place, Kai privately held a 2v1 battle with the other Blitzkrieg Boys, wanting to put himself on this equal playing field as Tyson when it comes to playing somewhat drained of energy. If Tyson had to have his other match earlier, then Kai wanted to purposefully make sure that there are no excuses for them playing against one another fair and square, which in all honesty is pretty cool to see. Kai really is an interesting character and a pretty fantastic friend and also rival to Tyson. It's like a frenemy type of thing. Sure, he could have just gone out to face Tyson with his full energy as an advantage, but he's not seeking an easy win. That's not what Beyblading's about for him. He's been seeking a real battle with Tyson, and it's finally time for that. This battle means so much to Kai, getting to now understand why he did abandon BBA Revolution to go to Russia to be with the Blitzkrieg Boys, as he wanted to push himself to a level where he could beat Tyson, and is tunnel visioned on this being the thing that will prove to himself that he would then have complete faith in his abilities and skills as a blader. It's this top of the mountain goal that he thinks he needs to hit to feel a sense of completion, at least for himself. This all comes at the cost of him kind of being a one-man show again, really representing himself as this lone wolf figure. Despite seeing him in the past seemingly overcome this to be there for the Blade Breakers and to help Tyson, his own personal path brought him back to this mindset. He's now in the final match, alone, with no team to show him support, because in all honesty, he used the Blitzkrieg Boys for his benefit at the end of the day. He didn't ever truly bond with any of them as an actual team. He's bet everything on beating Tyson. That's all that matters to him. It's what he feels he truly needs. No ifs, ands, or buts. This is the biggest, most insane, off-the-walls, visually stunning battle in the entire series, with both Tyson and Kai giving it everything they've got, showcasing all of their hard work and training over the past few seasons coming to a head as we get to see a level of exaggerated destruction and trippy altered mind state visuals that take this from an ordinary match into a downright spectacle to behold, something that expresses the rush of feelings from really giving it your all. In the end, Tyson ends up the world champion once more, with Kai having done the best he possibly could, and surprisingly, at least from the immediate end of the tournament, we can hear Kai thinking to himself that if he's going to lose to anyone, he's glad that it's to Tyson, showcasing a smile on his face even if he still lost in the end, hopefully leading his character to still have this desire to beat Tyson one day, just hopefully in the right ways. And that's the end of Season 3. Wait, what? It's not? Yeah, so despite how it's all built up and shown off, this ultimate match and visual spectacle isn't the finale to the last season of the OG Beyblade series. Technically, it's only a little over halfway through the season at this point, as we do get into another arc for the series right after all of this. While the chairman was busy dealing with everything that goes into the World Championship, the BBA itself was essentially taken and sold out from under him, as we learn of the new name for the BBA, which is called Bega, standing for the Beyblade Entertainment Global Association, with the reveal that the person behind all of this is none other than Boris, returning from the first season to perform a hostile takeover of the BBA, getting the chairman hoisted from the company, and now wanting to take Beyblading into a new and more corporate direction. Despite the universe of the show here having Beyblade as something that's already pretty massive, there's a world championship here where they fly around the world, the plan here seems to take Beyblading from what it currently is and turn it into this massive, wide-spreading spectacle. Basically, Bega would be this big conglomerate. Think of something like Disney. And now that they essentially acquired something more independent that operates on smaller levels, they plan to turn it into a massive franchise, making things flashier, finding new ways to profit off of it. From here, we also get the introduction of Ming Ming, who is this idol pop star that even has her own magical girl transformation sequence, introducing herself as the top Beyblader within Bega, and that's cool. I won't take that away from her. It's just the equivalent of like me starting my own website that's just like YouTube called TubeU, with only my videos on there and telling everyone I'm the biggest TubeUer. So while that would technically be true, that really means nothing. Anyway, there are other bladers in Bega. I just think it's funny how it was all presented specifically in this moment, but in general, things aren't good here. Our main bladers don't want to deal with all this new stuff that's here to ruin what Beyblading is, because it's Boris at the end of the day who's in charge. The Blitzkrieg boys end up trying to make a stand against what Boris is doing based on what Boris put them through as the Demolition Boys in the first season of the show, but all this does is put Tala in a coma as Tyson calls out Boris in front of everyone, claiming that this is all a trick and Boris can't be trusted, as Boris then leans into this to create a wager with Tyson, with Boris, as he puts it, getting to turn Beyblading into this globally recognized professional sport if he wins, and if Tyson wins, then Boris will disappear forever, and Mr. Dickinson can come back as the chairman of the company. It seems like the Blade Breakers are all coming back together to stand with Tyson in whatever little tournament of matches is being set up, but Kai ends up shocking them when he decides to join Bega's group and be fighting on their side. Oh, Kai, you're always full of surprises. To make things worse, not long after this moment, we see that Tyson's brother Hero has joined Bega as well to become a sort of coach to someone, showing up to a press conference wearing his Jin outfit again. So aside from Tyson crashing out over this, rightfully so, with the reasoning to it all not being explained yet, we do see that Tyson's stand against Bega isn't just a small cause with him and a few of the others backing him up. We see that all of the other bladers from across the many teams that we've seen around the world show up and offer their help in supporting their stand, as they now work on training their skills before this Justice 5 tournament, with them also needing to figure out who is going to be the 5th member of their team here, with Kai now being gone. Right now we have Tyson, Max, Daichi, and Ray, so it really can be any one of these people here, all having varying levels of great skills. It could also just be Kenny, and that would make sense, but in general, he's busy getting us introduced to something new for the Blades, and that's the Hard Metal System, or HMS, with this being a very late new type of Beyblade to add in before the original series comes to an end. They would make physical toys out of them, of course, and they were basically this in-between of how Beyblades were done during what people consider the Plastic Series era, and what they would become during the next iteration of Beyblade during the Metal Saga. But we'll get to all that another day. These Beyblades would be smaller than your typical ones, with them talking about it as having more power packed into a smaller space. Kenny comes running over bringing Tyson what he calls his masterpiece, Dragoon Metal Storm, and this new tech is so powerful that when Tyson first tries using it, it sends him flying back as if he were caught in an explosion. It's pretty ridiculous, but what hasn't been in this series, right? Anyway, on the other side of things, with the team that Bega has, they are trying to figure out who is going to take the 5th spot on their team, leaving it to a match that pits Kai up against Brooklyn, the Blader hero's been personally coaching, as they are setting him up as a character that is ultra powerful in battle, and also who doesn't really care all that much about Beyblading ethics. During this match between Kai and Brooklyn, things get pretty violent. We got people bleeding for this sport now, as Kai ends up losing, with Hero telling him that if the only reason he joined Bega and wanted on the team were all in the efforts of him just trying to defeat Tyson, then he's way out of his league here, with Kai being injured from Brooklyn's attack and his Dranzer Beyblade completely destroyed. After witnessing this, Kenny ends up handing Tyson another new HMS style blade, saying he's had this prepared for months, with it being Dranzer. Tyson ends up leaving it next to Tala in the hospital in the hopes that a miracle will happen and the right person will come around to claim it and join them as we now head into this final tournament. With the chairman giving support to the team to go in and give it their all, they now now have a new name. Time to throw out the Blade Breakers, time to get rid of the BB-8 Revolution nonsense. Now they are called G-Revolution.
He said it!
For this 5v5 tournament, or as of right now a 5v4, these matches are set to be one-on-ones, with the team that gets to 3 wins first being decided as the victor. Now things don't start off too well for G-Revolution, and we get to see how challenging the Bega Bladers are, with Daichi facing Ming Ming first and he ends up losing, with Ray then facing off against Crusher, with Ray losing in the end. Now with everything on the line for this third match already, Max ends up facing Merrick. Oh, sorry, I mean Mistel. Sorry, this character just really reminds me of Merrick. With Max really doing what he can to prevent the Bega Bladers from winning, he ends up being able to end his match on a draw, stopping the tournament from being over right then and there. Now, in a break for the day from the tournament, we see that not only our G-Revolution team here training, but we end up seeing Kai furiously practicing by himself. And eventually everything leads him to visiting Tala and seeing the blade left for him, as he then, in a very dramatic way, comes back to Tyson and the others, as a beaten and scuffed mess but with a sincere mindset of pure determination. When the matches start up again, Kai comes back as a member of G-Revolution, pointing directly at Brooklyn for his match. And this is a huge moment for Kai as we see how he ends up working through all this pent-up rage and deep-rooted emotions tied into everything that has made him who he is, being able to truly realize what power is actually inside of him, what Beyblading is all about, tying that in with all of the support from his friends, resulting in Kai being able to go toe-to-toe with Brooklyn, and thus being able to defeat him in the end and giving a win to G-Revolution. While Brooklyn doesn't know how to handle losing here, Kai ends up getting nothing but love from his friends, but it's not a happy ending for Kai, as he tells Tyson to not worry about him or his injuries and to just focus on his match, as he then starts walking out of the arena. Tyson tells him that he still wants a real battle with him in the future, with Kai signaling back a gesture that Tyson takes as a yes. But now, alone in the hallway outside of the arena, Kai collapses to the ground, once again hiding his true pain from the others, as he says to himself that his blading days are over, looking up to the lights shining on him, saying he risked everything, but if it inspired his friends, then he is glad. With that, he closes his eyes as his hands go limp, causing him to drop Dranzer to the ground as it shatters. We see him now, fully slumped against the wall, as it seems like he now passed away, ending Kai's story. Maybe.
Beyblade, let it rip!
Continuing on to Tyson's match, he ends up having to face the technical leader of the Bega bunch over there, Garland. And this isn't that crazy big battle to end things off, definitely not like Kai's battle previously before this match. It's just a solid, smaller fight where Tyson is able to defeat Garland, leaving the score tied up between both teams. So now in order to decide a victor, the real final match is set to begin, as we see Hero making Brooklyn get into this battle, as we see Brooklyn struggling with visions of the spirit of Kai and this evil dark aura forming. And on a real note, that launcher's pretty cool. Why didn't they make that a toy? I would have bought that. I would have bought 10 of them. We see Hero as anything but one right now, forcing Brooklyn, who clearly doesn't want any of this, into doing what he's told, as Brooklyn is kind of going all over the place, eventually feeling like he's this godlike figure, with Hero inner monologuing to himself about how Tyson better be ready, claiming that he's been training the next world champion here, and saying that Tyson basically can't win. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. Like, what is going on with Hero and him all being like this? But regardless, Garland, after witnessing what's going on with Brooklyn, ends up coming to Tyson to inform him about what's going on, making sure he isn't taking this lightly and that he really must prepare. But I'll tell you what, nothing could have prepared anyone for this. With the match starting and being an intense back and forth already between these two, it isn't long before things get out of hand, with Brooklyn getting ready to go demon mode. And I mean that literally. He starts turning into a full-on demon. At one point, he ends up wanting to take this match into another realm, essentially, as even Hero yells at him to not try and win the battle this way, but Brooklyn shuts him up, welcoming Tyson into the world of his mind. From this, he creates a black hole in the sky above, as he then sprouts these dark wings from his back, gloating about turning into something only found within nightmares.
Nightmare, nightmare, nightmare!
From this, the world around them is completely the world within Brooklyn's mind, with the only goal being for him to humiliatingly defeat Tyson once and for all in front of all of his friends. With things looking looking bad, and Tyson's still ready to do whatever it takes to stop Brooklyn and show us what the spirit of Beyblading truly is, we get the reappearance of Kai, dressed in a whole new getup and covered in bandages, giving a message to Tyson telling him to follow the path that he believes in, no matter what happens. Then he just says, Beyblade, after that, as if that's somehow the missing piece that goes to what he was just saying. I don't know, it's just kind of funny to be all like, you got this, believe in yourself, pause for dramatic effect, Beyblade. Anyway, Kai's maybe, or maybe not, a ghost now? We are technically in Brooklyn's mind, so I don't think this means Kai's alive or anything. It's probably just, you know, he's still haunted by the match that he had with Kai, so he's just in there still. Then Tyson just blasts off to go after Brooklyn to finish things off, to vanquish the darkness from his heart. And I mean it, he just like takes off, he starts flying. And then through the support of everyone sending in their power to give Tyson the strength and proper confidence to win this gigantic, galactic, over-the-top anime battle that again is just about some cool spinning tops, all comes to a head when it seems like the planet nearly explodes. But we just pull back from this madness, showing us back in the real world where things are also still pretty destroyed. That's a lot of property damage. But now with the dust settling, it's just two people looking at their Beyblades in a very regular, chill match where it seems that Brooklyn is even having a good time, smiling over it as they finish out their match. Now, during this, we get some answers as to why Tyson's own brother ended up signing on to be this personal coach for Bega, and it was all in the efforts of pushing Tyson and the others to really work through all the tough challenges they had ahead, acting as a reason for them to overcome it all, claiming when speaking with Boris that by doing this, it was raising the standards even higher for what our main bladers can do, as he says that Tyson and his friends have surpassed his expectations in that. Hiro seems happy, inner monologuing again about how proud he is of Tyson being able to overcome all of these challenges in order to save the sport of Beyblading, saying that Tyson was able to start over and renew his own game, then says it's his own turn to do so now, leaving his shades behind as he walks away. And what? What the heck was any of that, my dude? None of this plan made sense whatsoever. You're a bad brother. Most of it could have all been avoided, and it just ruined you as a character in the back half of the season after I really liked how you came in during the first half. So wherever it is that you're going, please stay there. Thank you. As for the match, we hear narration about how Beyblading was saved thanks to Tyson and the rest of G Revolution, while we don't directly see the visual outcome of the match. But, you know, Tyson still won. He saved the world, or Beyblading, or whatever. With some time passing afterwards, we see that the city is being rebuilt and looking way better, and so like, does Brooklyn have to pay for all this? Is Bega liable for it all? Is anyone going to jail? The city is pretty wrecked here for this all being a thing that was technically just in his mind, but I digress. Look, all I'm saying is a kid helps some thieves in another season steal a rock and then gets arrested. Then Brooklyn destroyed a whole city, and we have no idea what happened. Either way, the BBA is back, kind of. Bega is no more, and Beyblading is back to what it was, a fun and easily accessible to anyone's sport and or hobby that it should have always been. We end the episode on a moment though where we see Tyson and Kai resting in the grass, leading them into a battle against one another for old time's sake, with everyone gathering to watch it as the series comes to a close, ending with them and their bit beasts getting ready for a one-on-one. So like, you know, what the heck was that, right? Is Kai dead? Is Kai alive? Well, that's kind of up for you to decide. I do think this is made to look one way so that this kid show, at least for US audiences, didn't just kill off a very popular main character, but I love that in general you can take this as something not really happening and Kai did pass away, or see it as Kai being alright and things are just back to normal now. There is another way to look at this all through his bit beast being a phoenix, and the symbolism of one version of him dying while a new version of himself is born, and either way you look at it or want to interpret it, I think it's a pretty cool way to end the story and, more importantly, end Kai's part of the story for everything we've seen him as a character go through. Tyson and the others get to continue on where they were at the start of the season, helping teach Beyblading to the next generation of younger kids, as they all share in a big friend group where splitting up and being back with their own teams in their home countries or staying all together as a big unit is their biggest issue to handle. No more hostile corporate takeovers, demonic mind games, or weird older brothers that lose the plot and make you question what they're even doing here anymore. And that's all 3 seasons of the original Beyblade anime. There was a lot of good, a lot of not so good, but overall, a pretty fun time. I think in general that the original Beyblade anime is a solid enough time that doesn't rely solely on nostalgia to make it worth checking back out. Sure, the English dub of the series has its moments where you'll definitely be cringing from some line readings or from certain slang being used that makes it really feel of its time, but in saying that, I feel it has this charm to it that makes the experience both entertaining and fun. funny. Outside of that, there is a weird up and down flow with how this series goes. Season 1 does a great job at bringing you into this Beyblading world, giving you fun 2D animated blade battles and introducing us to a fun cast of characters that we get to see evolve and grow as the seasons go on. For the second season, V-Force was a bit of a mixed bag, as it has some great stuff like getting to expand on these other characters and not solely focusing on Tyson. The addition of the 3D animated blade battles are pretty cool and pretty understandable for the direction they wanted to take the battles, giving us more dynamic and action-packed moments that move at a pretty rapid pace. I think adding in a character like Hillary is cool too, with her character not being into Beyblading at all, but slowly seeing her become a part of the team, getting a chance to understand what Beyblading means to everyone, to then by the end of the series, having her full-on caring about this world, despite not really ever being a blader. She just respects it. Plus, we get information about how the spirits of the Bit Beasts work, as not everyone can actually see them, including Hillary, but she eventually does get the ability to see them, and for her, I think that's a truly good point to pick out, that you can see her understanding this world of Beyblading that her friends really care about. It was at that moment she knew there was something more to this. The problem with V-Force quickly becomes that it just feels a bit too redundant. We start to see the same things happen. You can easily see that characters don't really have anything to do. There's not a lot of personal arcs being developed for all of them, so it's understandable why a good amount of people consider this season as either the worst of the three or write it off as just filler. I don't think it's all that bad. I like that there does seem to be a repeating narrative about exposing how cheating in all these different ways is bad, and in the end will only backfire and hurt yourself. And with the third season, G-Revolution, I do feel that the series really picks back up, delivering an intense tournament arc right from the start, giving us some really great character development, stuff that was meaningful, whether it be from what Tyson goes through, all the way to characters that felt like side characters all the way back in season 1, with an example of someone like Lee and him having to deal with his panic attacks, or Miguel as he dealt with the pressures of being forced to cheat and play dirty and escaping out of that situation. The way that they expanded on the World Championship tournament this time was a lot more detailed. The matches had a lot more weight to the stakes of them, the arenas and battling felt more dynamic, and the show really felt lived in as we visited all the unique locations. Beyond that, I do think it feels jarring to go from the tournament arc ending and really feeling like the end of a season to then jumping into another arc seemingly out of nowhere, only making things more odd with the character of Hero and his reasons for having a shift in what he's doing, and I already talked about that enough earlier. I also like that, for the most part, the Bega team of bladers themselves aren't all that bad. I mean, we see Crusher pulling a Joey Wheeler and needing to be a part of this to get paid for being a professional in order to help his sister cover medical costs, giving us someone who is sensitive and has a legitimate reason for being under this corporation. I also do like that when the BBA becomes Bega, we see the broadcast logo change as well. It's a nice little detail that makes it all feel authentic. I will say though that there is a lack of Bit Beast spirits in this season, taking the focus away from them to focus on the struggles that the bladers are individually going through. And it's not a bad thing. I like focusing on the bladers. I just do find it a bit of a push away from how heavily the series leaned into this through the first 2 seasons. Like, how are you gonna give us all this detailed lore and then just like kind of not really care about it that much as we go on? And overall, I do appreciate that there is this level of goofiness to the series, especially at the start with stuff like Tyson and Max using their Beyblades to hit a floating log in the river to help save a dog from drowning. It's completely ridiculous, but come on, how can you not love that? And it's nice that that goofiness in general doesn't fade away the more mature things do get throughout the series, as we see stuff like Tyson and Daichi putting out a forest fire with their Beyblades in the 3rd season. Plus the whole ending of the 3rd season with this whole mind realm and Brooklyn becoming a demon of sorts, with Tyson flying around like an episode of Dragon Ball Z. The show literally ends with that same type of goofiness. Look, it can be both goofy and freaking awesome to witness. Other than all of that, I think the biggest thing when going into a series like this is really seeing what can be done to make it visually interesting. Luckily, Beyblade was already incorporating this monster or spirit beast side of things from the jump, turning what would just be mirroring real life and having kids spin tops until one is the winner into something with a bit of that fantastical creature element to make things not only more impactful on the screen, but actually fuse genres together to intentionally or unintentionally have Beyblade work in multiple ways for viewers. Like, at its core, it really embodies the structure and storytelling of a sports anime, but bringing in these beasts to make the battles feel like 2 monsters are doing battle instead of 2 spinning tops that clash frequently gives it what properties like Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and so many others had as well, so it can fit right at home alongside these other popular franchises while also having its own unique qualities that help it stand apart from the crowd. But let's be real, based on how we play with them in real life and the long history of playing with spinning tops in general, we probably would still be be watching and staring at just the spinning tops and be content with just that. I mean, there are these big official Beyblade tournaments out there. That's what literally happens, and it's hype. I just think through the concept, they found a pretty cool way to make Beyblade, a concept born from other concepts, into something that feels solely its own. While the art style of the series and the way that characters do look end up changing throughout the 3 different seasons for this first generation of Beyblade, I must admit, some of the designs for the characters, especially in the original first season, are pretty ridiculous looking. It really has what made anime in the late 90s and early 2000s have a distinct look and vibe baked into them. And for that, I do feel a sense of nostalgia for the time. But I mean, come on, some of these designs are distractingly Picasso-esque, and I often found myself having to pause the show just from laughter. Now, the series itself, for what it was not the original version technically. Much like any other big animated property that was being translated and adapted for audiences in the West, Nelvana did do some significant changes, with stuff ranging from as simple as localizing the names of characters to as complicated as restructuring certain narratives and ideas to add more of the sillier character dynamics that we would see in North America. Essentially, the same stuff that happened to early Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Would happen here as well, to no one's surprise, of course. As a kid, it's not like I knew any different until I got older and learned about stuff like this, you know? But in speaking about all of this, I think it's a good time to mention more about what came before the original anime in general. And that is, of course, the original manga. Like I had mentioned earlier, the origins of Beyblade started off with this quick 3, 2, 1, go shoot method in Japan, having the toys as well as the first video game of the series come out right next to each other in July of 1999, as the following month in August, the serialized manga series would start coming out in Shogakukan's Korokoro Comics manga magazine. Tasked with creating this was Takao Aoki, as he would be in charge of writing and illustrating this manga series in the efforts that it helps promote the Beyblade brand as a whole to get more kids interested in, you guessed it, buying the actual toys. And also, like, he's kind of creating the story here that other aspects of Beyblade, like the anime, would end up following. And much like how every other part of the Beyblade franchise would go for this, the main character we would follow would be Takao, which of course for the English iteration, as we know, was changed for him to be known as Tyson. But hold on a second, the main character's name is Takao, and the manga was being created by a guy named Takao, and that's just, that's interesting. A little self-insert never hurt nobody. Anyway, it's kind of funny that for places like North America, the manga was one of the later things that we would get here in relation to the Beyblade franchise. It wouldn't be until late 2004 that Viz would start releasing English volumes of the manga, which kind of makes sense as the real rise in popularity of manga, at least for here in the States, really started taking off in the mid-aughts. So in getting the series here when we did, was more of a way to continue expanding the market that which today is now a lot larger and more massive than it has ever been, and I am personally here for it. My love for manga, reading them, collecting them, all of that hasn't been this exciting and fun, at least for me, since the early to mid-aughts where I originally was heavily into manga. Now I could go on about manga all day, heck, here's where I joke about making a dedicated manga YouTube channel, but I don't know. If you want to see that happen, maybe at 1 million subscribers on this channel, I'll go ahead and start one. Anyway, the original Beyblade manga would run up until June of 2004, producing a total of 14 standalone volumes. Now, also something I mentioned earlier was the origins of this character, Daichi, who was introduced in the manga by getting chapters focusing directly on him. So it was cool getting to see him become this important character for the 3rd season of the anime. But this is not when we originally got to meet Daichi as a character in the animation, as there was another piece of Beyblade media that came out before the 3rd season of Beyblade, 2002's Bakuten Shoot Beyblade the Movie Fierce Battle Takao vs. Daichi. Man, they really need to work on the length of that title. When translated and brought to the States, the title simply became Beyblade the Movie Fierce Battle. Nice and simple. Something not so simple, again, would be the fact that this film came out before the final season and is treated as this non-canon standalone piece of Beyblade media with no real ties to what happens in the anime, with the film then not coming to North America until March of 2005, which was technically right in the middle of when season 3 was airing. So that's a bit more confusing, but this was just a straight to DVD release. It wouldn't be until March of 2006 where the film would be aired on YTV in Canada, with the US getting it premiered on Cartoon Network in November of 2009. Because of this setup, the film really went under the radar for people being in the know about it, with it seemingly being a good way to get people hyped for more Beyblade animation, as the next series for Beyblade was just around the corner in 2010. Consistency-wise, the film keeps the looks of V-Force here based on both when it was produced and when it was set to take place around, with there being a higher level of detail to the background backgrounds and other bits of animation because this was a theatrical event originally, and usually when there is any animated series getting a movie, they usually put their larger budget to work to bring you something more flashy. For the movie, like I was talking about, it would bring us the character of Daichi, who enters in on Tyson's match here, demanding a battle against him, and then they, start battling. But why watch that when the film then cuts to a place called Demon Rock Island? Sounds safe. Where we then see this professor taking his students on a field trip to this island, as they then stumble across a cave, where inside they end up finding this ancient language that talks about these black shadow spirits that ended up getting sealed away some 10,000 years ago. We then continue to cut back and forth between the match and this professor and his students, leading to a moment where Daichi's headscar and Beyblade begin to glow, while at the same time the cave breaks open further, exposing this ancient Beyblade setup as each of the students gets possessed by these dark spirits escaping their imprisonment, as we see familiar imagery carved into the tablets on the wall of the 4 sacred bit beasts, or at least something similar to them. The students, who clearly all don't look like they just did, are now completely taken over as we see Daichi losing the match, as we also learn that the goal of these spirits now is to end up finding Strata Dragoon, which is Daichi's bit beast that he has at the moment, but is unaware of the powers truly inside. And aside from all of this, the group now travel together and end up in an area with a cluster of islands, as they make note of the smallest island they're passing by being called Demon Rock Island. That's convenient. And why are they doing this? Why are they traveling anywhere? Well, they are visiting their teacher to go and meet her mother or something. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But all of our characters, minus Kai, are here now, as Daichi also ended up in this area because he followed the group here. The possessed kids are now on the search for Strata Dragoon, mentioning that they will find him and that this golden dragon shall set them free. So while they are searching, Daichi ends up following around Tyson, constantly bugging him about having another battle, but Tyson just keeps opting to mess with him instead. But at least he's caring enough to make sure that the kid is safe at the end of the day and has a place to stay alongside him and the others, so that's sweet. He's really like a Sour Patch Kid here with the way he treats Daichi. If you get it, you get it. Got it? Good. Eventually, we end up learning more about him, explaining that he ended up getting Strata Dragoon from his father, who passed away a couple of years ago. We get a sad flashback scene to what happened, showing us that his dad told him that this Beyblade will be there for him even if he can't be, and saying that Daichi won't let anyone beat him, and that he'll be #1 in all of Japan, leading to Tyson, now having heard all of this, agreeing to a rematch with him, as Daichi claims that he needs this. He needs to defeat the #1 person in Beyblading right now, and that being Tyson, in order to make good to the promise he made to his father as he died. But while their battle is going on, the possessed kids end up appearing, calling forth the power of Strata Dragoon, forcing him to make an appearance, showing off his golden look in full spirit form, before they stop the match completely and end up not only getting their hands on the Beyblade, but also Daichi. Man, so many kidnappings happen in Beyblade, but hey, at least it's not Kenny again. Tyson and the others end up going after them to save Daichi, only to have to deal with whatever ritual spellcasting nonsense this group did on him that causes his appearance to change and Strata Dragoon to be summoned out. While claiming Tyson to be one of the avatars of the sacred bit beasts, they end up sealing Dragoon into stone to fill in what they were trapped in for so long, destroying the whole cave and leaving Tyson trapped within it, making him alone with the stone version of his bit beast. In the meantime, the evil spirit crew here end up going to cause some chaos on the main island that we were originally on, ending up sending this typhoon that starts devastating the island as the residents scramble in panic, and hey, Kai shows up out of nowhere. Nice, but he might need a doctor to see if he's okay, as he sees this clear as day typhoon hitting the island, and with a straight face claims that only a bit beast can be behind this. Yeah, sure, okay man, whatever you say. It's just good to see you. For Tyson's time trapped, he gets to have this moment with Dragoon where he talks about the connection that they've had and being able to or not able to come out as a spirit when needed. But Tyson ends up saying that he's the one that's going to save Dragoon now and be there for him as a real pal would. As he gives it everything he's got to try and break out of the cave and figure out how to save Dragoon, Dragoon then speaks to him about never giving up, resulting in this mutual trust and respect for one another, and that bond has Dragoon shooting a massive beam of light out into the sky as Tyson's Dragoon blade itself now turns red, and the power that Dragoon shoots out sets them free. So I guess Dragoon saved him in the end again. Oh, and back to the other island. Now it's all covered in flames, so maybe Kai was right. This is the clear workings of a bit beast. My apologies. Once Kai finds who is behind this, giving us a chance to see the evil spirits having these dark variants of the sacred bit spirit beasts all under their control, Tyson and the rest of the Blade Breakers are here to make a stand, and the 4 avatars of the regular real sacred bit beasts are here to fight back. Yeah, it's a bit generic. They're just fighting evil variants of themselves, but honestly, who cares? This is just so fun right now, right? The upper hand the evil spirits have is also having Daichi being evil with them, and that means they have Strata Dragoon on their side as well. So, that's not so fair. Through these battles, Ray, Kai, and Max all get defeated, but Tyson is able to get Daichi back to being himself and fighting the good fight alongside him thanks to reminding him of the promise he made to his father, and we get them fighting back as hard as they can, being able to best the Dark Bit beasts, returning back to where they were originally sealed away, as all of the kids are back to being normal and no longer possessed. But that island did actually get destroyed though. Lots of property damage. Who's going to pay for that one? Some sealed away spirits? Daichi? No, not me. What the heck did I do? In the end, the island where they are sealed away sinks, so hopefully that means they'll never return. But for our main characters, they now return to where things were at the beginning, with Daichi chasing around Tyson in the hopes of facing him in a match again and beating him. See, what a weird movie when comparing it to the show, as Season 3 reintroduces Daichi as a brand new character, and already knowing about Strata Dragoon, with that all being treated way differently anyway. So yeah, it's just weird. Sometimes anime movies are non-canon, and sometimes they just feel like a slightly altered different universe from the actual main series. Either way, it's still a fun film with some great animation, the voices you know and love for the characters are returning for them, as well as a little bit of extra time to hang out with Tyson and the Blade Breakers. It's not such a bad thing at the end of the day. Whether you liked it or not, at least it wasn't live action, am I right? That would be crazy for them to even ever attempt that. Oh no. Yeah, so apparently they have been trying to make a live-action Beyblade movie for quite some time now. Back in 2015, it was announced that Paramount was planning on creating a live-action film after acquiring the rights to do so. At this point, thanks to Paramount's success with Hasbro-related properties, they were going to try their hand at Beyblade, with it being produced by Mary Parent and her Disruption Entertainment production company. They seemed pretty excited about all of this, talking about how successful the Beyblade brand has been, and the rise in popularity again thanks to Beyblade's 2010s era of generations going on around the time. But nothing ever came of the film, and it was radio silent up until 2022, where we would get another update on the project, with an announcement of Jerry Bruckheimer coming in to produce the live-action film adaptation, with Neil Widener and Gavin James working on the script. At this point now, they mentioned that the project is in early development, and they believe it could have franchise potential in the live-action space based on the popularity of the animation and the popularity in the toy scene. So who knows, maybe one day we will see this live-action Beyblade film come to be. And right now, while Beyblade X is making some strong waves with the anime, manga, and actual toys on the shelves, it could be a good time to get this film made. I'm not saying it'll be great, it would take a lot for it to be that, but strike while the iron's hot, and let's see what they can do. Or rather, I should say, let it rip.
Oh, brother!
But as far as Beyblade in general goes, that's really it for now. At least for the first generation anyways. This is really the start of a new series where I'll be going over these different generations, so sometime in the nearish future, we will return back into the world of Beyblade as we talk about the second generation, the Metal Saga. I hope to see you there, Bladers. Were you a fan of the original Beyblade anime? Out of all the series out there for Beyblade, which one is your favorite? Let me know all of that and more in the comments down below. Thank you to all my Patreon members who help support these videos getting made. It means the world to me and I appreciate you all so much. Consider becoming a member for $5 a month to help support these videos getting made and getting access to some fun extras, as well as being more involved directly in the video topics themselves. And of course, thank you all in general for watching. Before you go, make sure to leave a like on this video and to subscribe for more videos like this coming soon. But until then, I've been Jordan Fringe. See you later.